Let us pray. Almighty God, with you there is no beginning and no end, for you are the origin and goal of all creation. May this new year, which we dedicate to you, bring us abundant prosperity. Fill the hearts of all men and women with the fire of your love and the desire to ensure justice for all their brothers and sisters. By sharing the good things you give us, may we secure justice and equal for all human beings, an end of all division, and human society built on love and peace. And we ask you especially this year to bless our farmers with their crop, may fill the field of good fruit. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Please face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to the next item, which I am so graciously excited about, is the election of the chairman. At this point in time, do we have any nominations for chairman?
I'll nominate Commissioner Newberger.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
I vote no.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I think.
Take the seat. You get to elect the vice chairman.
I got that.
Yeah, you can have this one. let me stand up and find out who your vice chairman is going to be.
Aren't you going to do it?
No, sir.
Take your book with you?
Well, I'll move it. Yeah. Can we just stand here?
We can.
I know I'm going to move one more time, so I feel like a lost soul.
Maybe not, maybe not. Thank you, fellow commissioners. I promise to do as good a job as our dear departed funeral director.
We hope for improvement.
Yeah, we put you there for an increase in services here.
I hear that every day.
Okay, election of vice chairman.
I nominate Commissioner Wheeler.
I'll second that.
Anybody, any further nominations? We have a motion to nominate Commissioner Wheeler as vice chairman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thanks, sir.
Gary, you're it.
Okay, get up and move.
I got to sit down there?
Yes, sir.
I don't think you assigned the seats, Jay. I think Art does.
And you can't have this one back.
Where would you like to sit?
I like it right here.
Stay there.
Good.
I tell you, this belongs to you already. This belongs to you already.
What did Sandra do wrong?
You just always have to have me by your side. You want to switch? You like being out
No,
there?
just be quiet.
Leslie and I developed such a good
There
relationship.
you go. Let me get over here closer to Sandra.
It's going to be a long year.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
You all behave yourselves now. Okay. Let's see. Vice Chairman. Constitutional officers, there is no action required on that. That's on the agenda in error. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Kim?
I have
Nothing? There are none. No proclamations, presentation, approval of minutes, none. Consent agenda. There are a couple items. One, items 7I and J.
Yes.
Commissioner Davis and I both have appointees for the Beach and Shore. And also I have a gentleman in the audience, Mr. Nyberg, who would like to discuss item 7W.
That was it for me, Commissioner, too.
Okay. Are there any
Move
other?
approval as amended.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Moving second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. 7I and J. I would like to nominate, where to go? Let me get up on
Page 41.
Barney.
Mr. Barney?
Yeah.
David, is it?
That's why if you had your vice chairman next to you, he'd help you out, but he's way down there on your end.
Yeah, David Barney as an appointee to the Beach and Shore Preservation.
I'll second that.
You have someone?
I'll second it if you'll nominate. I don't think Art can nominate.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No,
But-
I can't make motions, but I think I can nominate.
Okay.
And that could be the case.
Do you have a nomination?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I have a nomination, Cheryl Gerstner. I'd like to nominate her to be on the Beaches and Shores Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, we have two nominees. Are there any other nominees?
No, sir.
Let's see, rather than call each one individually, I think I'll just ask you who your choice is. That way, whoever gets the three.
Sure, absolutely, and it's in the backup of the information on page 48 is her application for the appointment. She's someone that's intimately involved with real estate in the south end of the South Beach Property Owners Association, Save Our Shores, several organizations in the community as far as the Humane Society, and has expressed some interest in being a part of this committee. And it's with that I'd like to see her on there.
I'd like to see David Barney on. And
well, the reason I nominated him, I agree with Sandra. Cheryl is a property owner and lives on the beach side and has a vital interest. I agree with that, and she would be a very good nominee. However, it's been brought to my attention that most of the people on the beach and shore are in favor of beach renourishment. I thought maybe a dissenting voice, and Mr. Barney certainly is a dissenting voice. He comes to most of the meetings, and I think he'd be a valuable person. Nothing against Cheryl, but I think we need someone dissenting and telling us what the pitfalls may be for beach renourishment. But either person would be excellent in my view.
So
all right.
What do we need now? A motion, or do we need?
We have the motion for each of them. I'm going to have.
We need a motion to
I think you've had a motion
We've
to
had a motion
nominate
for both
each.
of them.
It's just a question of how you want to proceed with it.
I would like to have the clerk poll the group, ask for their choice of a nominee.
That's good enough.
I would.
Commissioner Bowden?
I particularly would like to go with David Barney. I do think both are good, but I did see in the letter from Cheryl that one of the sentences that I sort of question, and it says, as the citrus industry succumbs to development. Well, I'm not sure that that's going to happen, and that has happened.
Commissioner Lowther?
For Cheryl Gerstner.
Chairman Newberger?
Barney.
Commissioner
Cheryl.
Davis? Commissioner
Mr. Barney, I think diversity is positive. It certainly has been here this year.
Mr. Barney it is then.
Congratulations,
Thank
Mr. Barney. Yeah.
Mr. Barney. David here? No. Okay. And the other item on the consent was item 7W, request for floodplain storage waiver for Pullen multifamily site plan and preliminary plat application. Mr. Nyberg, would you like to make a presentation? Where do you go? There you go. I think he has passed out some information to each of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for interrupting your plans. Just we have been attending the Planning and Zoning Commission following Mr. Pullen's progress on a lot that he owns at the end of 110th Street, which is along a canal and abutting the Indian River. And his request for a waiver in the flood plan, stormwater flood plan, doesn't seem appropriate. We're not opposed to Mr. Pullen's building. Obviously, it's his property, and he can do what he chooses. He chooses to put in a four-building condo and then another home, along with a swimming pool and an entrance road, all on a lot that previously held one single-family dwelling. That dwelling has been destroyed by Francis. The lot is always underwater, even when it rains. A low portion of the lot fills with water. Every storm so far, and I provided you in the folder that I gave you with pictures from Wilma, which is the smallest amount of flood water, but the only photos that I had access to. The lot floods badly, and the 110th Street becomes the drainage for that. And during Francis and Jean, there are two newer homes abutting at the end of the street, Mr. Pullen's lot and across the street. Those homes had debris on the mounds that they have built, approximately 5-foot-high mounds to meet zoning requirements for new homes. Those homes had debris left, swale debris left after Francis and Jean, 2-3 feet up their mounds. Now those homes are up the street. They're the next lots up the street from where Mr. Pullen is. Mr. Pullins, the home that was on the lot was destroyed, and the home across the street from that was destroyed by the storm, and both homes have been removed. Now, he's asking for a reduction in fill. It would seem to me that it's against the interest of the potential buyers of the property he'll build, because there's always water there, as you can see, even after Wilma. And it stays there for up to a week or more. So we were trying, grateful for the moment you're giving us, to provide you with some background information contrary to what Carter and Associates has provided in their survey. I'm sure their survey and their background information is accurate based upon the engineering standards, but it would appear as though the standards for floodplain concerns along the Indian River may not be accurate given the experiences we've encountered here in the last year. The general plan in our opinion, there are 5 of us here today just from the neighborhood, and Mr. Collins can fill you in. We've been at a number of the meetings for planning and zoning. We're not sure why Mr. Pullen is avoiding planning and zoning and coming to you. But the plan for the building seems to put too many buildings on the lot, and the displacement effect is undoubtedly got to push water up the street onto other homes. Now, only the 2 newest homes at the end of the street abutting Mr. Pullen's property and on the other side are on mounds. All the homes up the street from that are older and are built, as requirements must have been 30 years ago, they're built lower. So it's not going to take too much more before displacement of water or a more severe storm will simply cause damage to those homes. So to sum it up, then, I can't understand. I would think that the standards for Mr. Pullen's building should be higher with regard to storm water, not less, just from visual observations with no engineering experience. So I can't totally understand all that Carter and Associates have provided you with, except to understand that they're asking to reduce the amount of fill and therefore build the buildings lower to the ground. And where they'll be building will undoubtedly be right in the low portion of the lot. The high portion of the lot is right next to the Indian River, abutting Dr. Louie's home, which is also there. And that's the only portion of the lot in the photos that I gave you that you can see any green to the far right out by the river. All the rest of the lot is underwater because the canal right next to it simply overflows its boundaries, and that's the lowest point on the canal. And Mr. Pullen's lot is then inundated. So I don't know if I'm not very good at this, and I really wasn't prepared to make a public statement, but I don't know if I've confused you or left you with any questions, but we just wanted to provide you with
we have
an
a
alternate
lot of questions, but thank you for your information, and I'm going to ask Mr. Davis, our engineer, to maybe respond to some of your questions.
If I can ask,
Jim, hold on.
I know that Mrs. Louie has also provided a letter to each of you with their opinion that was brought in this morning.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask Mr. Nyberg a question, please. You'd mentioned that they're not going through the planning and zoning. Has this not been before the planning and zoning before?
It's been before planning and zoning, and Mr. Collins can give you a more accurate detailing of that. But it's been several months since he asked for approval of platting his lots. He's building a condo building with 4 units, and then at the end of the lot, right along the river, is a home with a swimming pool somewhere in there. And he needed to acquire access because the entrance to the lot is very narrow, and he had to get a waiver, which I don't know that he's gotten yet, to provide a road so that emergency vehicles could go down to the other buildings. He's asked for waivers on height. The amount of buildings that he's putting on the lot, the volume of building that he's putting doesn't leave room for the normal frontage and buffer requirements that a multifamily project would require, but he obtained waivers for that somehow from staff. They approved that we can put down minimal. So he's been going through a process, as any builder would, trying to adjust county ordinances to what he wants to do. And it would be the opinion up and down our street that what he's doing is inappropriate to the neighborhood. There are no condos there. They put those in separate segments, River Run, Reflections, Pelican Point, and they have their own areas and they're contained. We're a single-family residence.
But what is the
I
zoning?
did jab at you slightly in the note that I gave you.
RM6.
I poked just slightly at you in the note that I gave you because county zoning allowed multifamily dwellings all along the Indian River and along US 1. And I can understand that from an efficiency point of view because back when you did it, it was just sort of a broad sweep. But it's kind of crude because in there are neighborhoods that are all single-family homes, and many of them built on multifamily zoning. Now, it opens the door to someone like Mr. Pullen, who is not in the wrong. He's just trying to make a profit and build and sell something that will earn him money. But it's when you live there and you have to stay with it after he's gone, condos aren't going to just blend in. And crowding all of that onto one lot is going to create flood problems for the homes adjacent to him and near to him as it pushes displacement, pushes water up the street. I don't know where the water would go just in witnessing it. So the broad zoning effect of multifamily along US 1 and along the Indian River has created some side effects for us. I don't think the zoning could probably be changed by people like us. I don't know. And that may be a long-run solution. But at the moment, we just have to deal with Mr. Pullen on the groundwork that's there. I probably stepped on someone's foot there with a question you were about to.
That's all right. Are there any other questions of Mr. Nyberg?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I know this went in front of Planning and Zoning, and I think this was one of the catalysts for some of the things that occurred and requests by Planning and Zoning, our joint meeting and some other things, advertising, et cetera, that we talked about. I would like to get the full background on this from Mr. Collins.
Well, let's, you want to hear the opposite side of the story, why he would consider this?
Yes, I would.
Engineering standpoint rather than a legal standpoint.
Okay.
Jim Davis, County Public Works Director. The county stormwater ordinance does allow for a waiver to fill in the Indian River floodplain. The Indian River is not a classical floodplain. It's more of a lagoon-type estuary. So back when our code was written, we have an allowance whereby a property owner can place some fill below elevation 3.8 along the Indian River lagoon to allow for either development or for whatever purposes that property owner would like to fill. And the reason we allow this waiver is simply because the lagoon is such a large estuary that placing 300 cubic yards of fill below elevation 3.8, which in many cases is pretty far inland along the floodplain, simply is so negligible in raising any water level along the Indian River Lagoon that it's a diminuous type of a issue. Placing that small quantity of fill usually along the banks of the river, maybe up to US 1, depending on where the elevation and the topography along the river actually is just a diminuous type of effect. So that's why we've allowed this in our code. It's been in our code since the inception of the stormwater ordinance. And St. John's allows these kind of waivers. They don't even enforce their compensatory floodplain issues along the river. So we're dealing only on the floodplain fill below elevation 3.8. We're not talking about filling the river or anything like that. We're just we do have allowance for the board to grant this waiver. It's up to your discretion. You know, we bring all these waiver requests to the board, but this particular request is 304 cubic yards, and it will be placed below elevation 3.8.
In your alternative number 2, or if we would deny this, require an on-site compensation for the proposed displacement. Explain that.
Well, if he places 300 cubic yards of material on the lot below elevation 3.8, then he has to excavate 304 cubic yards on that same lot or within the floodplain below elevation 3.8. It's a compensatory thing. Whatever you put in, you have to take out. So that's what option number 2 is, that he would have to scrape 304 cubic yards either off his lot or out of the floodplain to to compensate for the 304 cubic yards on the lot.
So that would not change the dynamics of the pictures we've seen with the water flooding through there? It would.
Well, when you think of the size of the Indian River Lagoon, it's such a huge area that I don't know if anyone can really calculate how high the water level would rise by 304 cubic yards. Well, this is more of a local, probably a flooding issue, not a compensatory floodplain issue.
Okay, while you're looking at that, Gary wanted. Wait. Gary, you wanted a comment from our attorney?
Yeah, I agree with what's being said here because of the fact that I don't think these should be built there anyway, but that's, it is a single-family neighborhood, and I'd just like to get all the background from Mr. Collins. He sat through the planning and zoning meetings, and we also refresh my memory.
This did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe, in September. At that time, I think it was postponed. The site plan approval action was postponed because there was an issue about creating small lots in an already platted subdivision. I think we worked through that. It's not really creating any new lots. It's putting 5 multifamily units on a single lot, which is allowed because it's zoned multifamily. Its site plan was approved, but an issue has come up. I don't remember if it was at the Planning Commission meeting or shortly thereafter, where this particular parcel is at the end of 110th Street. It really doesn't have any frontage on 110th Street, but it does have a private access easement over the lot immediately to the west of it. The owner of the lot immediately to the west is contesting the ability of Poulin to provide utilities because his point of contact with the public road, 110th Street, is only a point at the corner of his lot. Where he has an access easement to get to his property, he doesn't have any utility easements, and I think that the property owner to the west is still contesting his ability to provide utilities, and that may hold up the project. I think Poulin is probably going forward with this request at his own risk, trying to get the cut and fill waiver, but that may not mean that the project can be developed absent the provision of utilities to a multifamily complex.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Nyberg, you have another comment?
I did. The owner of that home is present today if you have any questions on that issue, the utility waiver. Mr. Davis said it's, and he's right in terms of the size of the lagoon, it's a diminutive problem. But that phrase has no meaning at all when you live on that street, because now you've narrowed it down to not concerned with the entire Indian River Lagoon, but the impact of the buildings and the displacement effect moving up the street, not into the lagoon. The water doesn't recede. It does in part recede back into the canal and therefore into the lagoon. But it comes out of the canal, which it's right at the mouth of the canal, and therefore you're talking about the convergence of the canal and the Indian River. And the storms Francis destroyed the wall in part that had been around that lot. It had to be repaired and modified. The wall itself on the canal appears to not be quite on an engineer's level, and therefore there's a low spot that you can see in every storm where suddenly the canal and Mr. Poulin's lot are one thing. Now, the displacement of dirt that Mr. Davis spoke about, I can only conceive of a couple of things. Mr. Poulin has a notably low spot on his lot, right where the narrow access for the old driveway comes in. In order to put an emergency road, a road for 5 homes that would handle emergency vehicles, he needs access over the neighbor's lot, over Mr. Tate's lot. He also needs utility access. He has to bring a sewer down the entire street from 110th Street, apparently at his expense, I'm not sure. He owns another lot immediately across the street from where his driveway comes into 110th Street, that narrow little thing that Mr. Collins referred to. If he were to if he dredges the lot that he plans to build on in order to put the fill in that he needs, I don't know where the room would be, given the site plans that he's filed with the planning and zoning. There doesn't appear to be room to dredge out that much dirt in order to fill another spot of the lot. If he goes across the street to the other lot that he's purchased, immediately where Mr. Louis and Mr. and Mrs. Louis' home is, and across the street from his own lot, if he dredges that out and uses that as his fill across the street, what he does then is he raises one lot on one side of the street, forcing water to run across 110th Street into a lowered lot on the other side. I don't know, that would be akin to Walmart saying, look, we've got a drainage plan. We bought a lot on the other side of US 1. We're going to dig it out and we're uphill so the water will run across US 1 into the lot. We've gotten rid of it. We've solved our flood problem. I don't know that that's a wise thing to do, because people use that lot. The Louis have to use it in order to obtain entrance to their home. If the street becomes part of his flood plan, because he dredges land from one lot that he owns and moves it over to another, that just seems ludicrous to us.
Well, I think these are all other hurdles that he has to climb. The utilities and the displacement of the water. He's supposed to keep the water on his own lot. And I think these are things he has to get accomplished.
Right, and I would probably take more of your time than...
I'll move alternative 2.
I'll second that.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Aye. The motion has been made to deny the floodplain storage waiver and require an on-site compensation for the proposed floodplain displacement. I heard you say that the Mr. Pullen is in the audience? No?
I think it was...
Not here? Oh, okay, I thought maybe he might like to be heard. All right, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. Constitutional officers, public items, public hearings none. Public discussion items. Request to speak from Steve Lino regarding petition for road maintenance west of Willow from a fax dated December 12th. Mr. Lino?
Oh, yeah. Good morning. I want to thank you for your time to hear our request here. I don't really know what your protocol is, but I've made a list of, we're requesting that the county grade the 5 roads west of Willow Street, which is 79th, 81st, 83rd, 85th, and 87th Street. We're having a problem with them, and we tried to settle this without coming to the commission. So I'd like to give you the reasons why we were told that this couldn't be done. Number one was that the roads needed to be widened and improved first, yet the same roads that are identical in condition on the east side of Willow Street are being graded now and have been graded for some time. The other reason was that these are not approved roads. They are only access roads for maintaining the drainage canals. How can this be when the county has put street signs up and issued building permits? Another reason was that the budget wouldn't allow it. Now, in the past 3 years, the taxable valuation of them lots have increased by 120%. And as building is done, this will increase many times over. Also, I think when we're building there, we've paid impact fees, which I think should be more earmarked for some of the road maintenance. Some of the residents have small tractors with box blades, and we've tried to keep the roads maintained, but due to the huge holes and the berm at the canal side of the roads is eroding in some places, which is causing a safety hazard. It's no longer possible to keep the roads up. What we need is a grader in there, and we'd like to have it done on a monthly basis. Last year there was a total washout at the west end of 87th Street, making it impossible for the residents to get into or out of their property. The county wouldn't offer any assistance on this. Besides this, these roads are taking years off of the life of our vehicles. At times, well, the road can't drain. There's so many big holes in it, and we can't take care of it with a small tractor. The water lays on the roads, it's not draining off. That's creating a problem, and it becomes a 5-mile-an-hour road. I lived in Vero Lake Estates in the 70s and 80s when there was few residents, and the county had maintained these roads and are still doing to this day. What we're doing is asking the commission to take an affirmative action on the maintenance of these roads, 5 roads. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Leno, are these county roads or are these Fellsmere roads?
Well, I think they'd be county roads because they got street signs on them, and they've issued building permits to build down there, so I'm assuming they're county roads.
West of Willow must be in Fellsmere, is it not?
No, it's
It's
not.
south of Fellsmere in the county,
Still
yes.
South of the city of Fellsmere.
Okay.
If someone has illegal access to their road, whether it's an easement or a dedicated public road, they have a right to build on it as long as that easement was in place before our road frontage requirements went into effect. These tracks were platted, I think, around 1911, a very long time ago, and most of the roads were established to provide access to the drainage canals for their maintenance. A couple of the comments Mr. Linus made about using impact fees. You can't use impact fees to bring roads up to your levels of service standards. Impact fees are used to improve capacity on collector and arterial roads. The county policy and state law with respect to local roads is that the county is not required to accept maintenance responsibility unless and until those roads meet the county's standards, which would mean a certain minimum width that would be adequate to provide for a traveled way, roadside recovery, and drainage. And I'm not sure what the width of these easements are. Maybe Mr. Davis has a little more information, but
Can I interject?
there are a lot of roads in the county that are not maintained simply because the county has never accepted maintenance responsibility because they don't meet county standards.
Mr. Davis?
The board addressed this policy about 1.5 years ago regarding the approximately 100 miles of roads that aren't maintained in the county by the county. The roads in question here, west of Willow, are owned by the property owners within the Fellsmere Water Control District. They're not dedicated to the public or to the county at large. They exist within either 20-foot wide or 30-foot wide rights-of-ways alongside a canal. Usually the canal's on the south side of the road. And it's, as the gentleman said, Mr. Leno, it's difficult to construct an adequate road with some type of a drainage, a swale, and a shoulder when you have a canal in a 20-foot right-of-way next to a road in a 20-foot right-of-way. The road, a two-way road itself, is 22-foot wide usually, 20 maybe. But and many of these roads meander outside of the right-of-way. They actually encroach private property. Some people have fences along the edge of these roads that are very close to the road. You have a deep canal on one side. And over the years, the various Board of County Commissioners have stated that we do not want to accept any more substandard roads and put the general public in the liability situation of accepting substandard roads. Now, a year and a half or so ago, when the board addressed the whole policy, they stated that if property owners will work with the county to dedicate right-of-way, up to 60 foot of right-of-way, and pay to get the road up to some standard, with the long-term solution to perhaps pave the roads so that all the silt doesn't wash into the Indian River Lagoon, then we can begin a program on that basis. And Commissioner Davis and I met in Fellsmere recently on some similar situations, and many property owners are doing that kind of thing. Some of them are improving their own roads. The Circle Z Ranch property out west of Fellsmere, they've paid Sawmill Ridge to improve the roads. And many property owners don't want the county maintaining their roads. You know, we get into that situation where, you know, a few people on the street want us in there, some people don't want us in there. And how do you tackle that over 100 miles of this situation? You know, that's where the budgetary situation comes up. The gentleman said that I stated we have no funds in the budget. Well, I'm not talking about adding a mile or so to our system. I'm talking about the big picture of there's 100 miles of this out there in the unincorporated area. You've got all the St. Johns River Water Control District with unmaintained roads. You've got the Fellsmere Farms District with unmaintained roads. You have 13th Street Southwest in the South County, and River Farms Drainage District. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
So that's why we were looking at a broad policy to look at all of these situations, come up with a program where everyone could participate in the same program like we do the petition paving program. And, we're here to help, but we can't do it without right-of-way, and we can't do it without some funds to get the road up to an acceptable standard so that once we do begin maintaining it, we have something there to maintain that's safe.
Well, how would you recommend that we move in this particular case? Ask these people to donate right away, and then
yes, sir. That was what
the
board approved a year or two ago. If the people will work with us to donate the right-of-way needed, and to pay to get a decent road there, because when you buy a lot on some of these areas that don't have good roads, instead of paying $50,000 an acre, you may pay $20,000 an acre, and the reason you pay less is because you have less infrastructure there to serve that lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not fair on the other taxpayers that are paying $50,000 an acre to subsidize putting in roads in an area where they paid $20,000 an acre for.
And we're talking outside the urban services boundary.
Right. We're talking about in the rural areas. Most of these roads in the very rural areas where the county has not been asked to maintain roads. In this particular area, Mr. Kahn owned 800 acres back in there, and he sold off all these 10-acre tracts in a few years, and there was never a demand there. That's why we didn't maintain them years ago.
I'd like to address that, if you don't mind.
Are you familiar with this policy we have about the...
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but it doesn't even pertain out there because none of them roads have been made to 60-foot right-of-ways, and they don't need to be. All we're asking for is a grader to clean them up. The same roads directly across Willow Street to the east have been being graded. They're still being graded. The realtor that handled the sales of all them 5-acre parcels had the grader come in one time in the last 3 years to clean the road up, and there's no problem for a grader doing it. And it'll be a hell of a lot better than what it is right now. To my knowledge, when Mr. Kahn applied to subdivide off these 5-acre parcels, the county requested him to straighten the roads up, which he took to court and he won his case. Now, I hope that we're not all being punished because of this court decision. But I'd like to know, I'd like Mr. Davis to tell me why the roads are being done on the other side of Willow Street.
In 1978, the board entered into a maintenance agreement with the Fellsmere Farms Water Control District, and at that time the board accepted certain roads, I'd say maybe a half a dozen roads, and elected to maintain those roads under an agreement whereby the district would supply any material for the roads if the county would simply grade them. And I wasn't here in 78. There was a lot of discussion in the minutes at that time. You may want to go through the archives and sort of read that discussion in 78. But Al Malloy and Bill Watke and the commissioners at that time, recognized that there were some certain needs, that they wanted the county in there to maintain a half a dozen roads. The rest of them, were not put in the maintenance agreement. There have been a few roads added to that agreement since 78. But nothing to the extent of accepting all the roads in the Fellsmere Farms Water Control District. You've got a lot of them off Park Lateral. You've got quite a few off Willow Street. And it's a big issue if we take all of these roads over. It would require another grader route, particularly if we're being asked to maintain them monthly, because it's just very difficult. That's a wide area. The Fellsmere Farms Water Control District, I don't know how many acres it is, but it's thousands of acres. And before the Carson Platte estate was sold off to St. John's, it was even more of a potential monster in terms of us grading all those roads. But
we have to be careful. They meander on private property, and some of them don't want a grader on there. We're in a, they do not want the grader there. So we're in the middle when we start down this road and tell people give the right-of-way and to make the appropriate size so that we can do the proper drainage. And I think that's the first step, is that they get with the neighbors.
Well, I think,
If the neighbors aren't going to give the right-of-way and don't want us there, it's hard for us to put the grader on private property.
Well, thanks to Annette, several days we got 5 pages of signatures on the people, the residents out there that want this done and need it done. And I think Mr. Davis is over-exaggerating things when he talks about ever paving the roads. We all know that that's never going to happen in our lifetime.
Are they willing to give right-of-way? Are they? Is that?
We don't need right-of-way. All we need is a grader to come in there once a month or once every 2 months. I mean, it's,
Mr. Chairman?
It's going to take 2 days of the county's time to do 5 roads there.
All right, any questions? Gary, Wesley? Gary?
Yeah, just a comment. I was here back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I know that at that time this came up time and time again, and the commission pretty much held the line on this is what we're doing and going to continue to do, and we're not going to expand it. And one of the reasons for that is to improve the county overall with petition paving and to get the right of way and to build the roads as the county grows. Also, I think by agreeing with this request, we're setting a precedent of something that we all know is coming or potentially coming. That's 5 and 10 acre ranchettes, and then people coming in after they settle wanting to the county to take over maintenance of the roads. And we do have a process to go through where we can get the right of way, we can do petition paving, and the drainage and paving and everything else will be fixed. In fact, that's part of the reasons we set up a MSTU for Vero Lakes Estates to work on their drainage and roads. And I sympathize with living on a bad road, but you know, the bottom line is you bought there, and as someone mentioned, the property was valued at such. And you know, the other people are paying larger prices for the property, are on paved roads, have utilities and other amenities that affect the cost of that property. So I would not be in favor of expanding our greater route.
I'd be happy if you all took a ride out there sometime and see what we have to deal with. I mean, I've never lived with public water and sewage in my life. I'm not a city boy looking because I said I paid so much for property to get a road cleaned up, but this thing it's a safety hazard at times.
But there is a process to go through where if you wanted to give the right of way to the county and participate in the petition paving, I think you pay 25%. Is it still that?
It's 75.
On a county maintained
Well, first of all, all the
25%.
All the properties on the one side of the road won't be included in that because there is no place to expand there. You have to go from the canal to the south.
Right. Wesley?
To expand
Yes.
it.
Your district.
Yes, and I'm intimately aware of what you're talking about on both sides. We had a long conversation. Jim Davis did come out to Fellsmere with me, and we had a meeting in City Hall with the residents of 93rd Street, which is off Park Lateral West. I thought that may be an easy one to tackle, so we'd start at that, mainly because when the Platt sold that property, there was in fact some right-of-way that was dedicated, never accepted by the county, but there is in fact right-of-way. The dilemma that we're having in this instance is that some people want it taken care of, other people want the county off of it. Some people, and it's true.
I can imagine that.
And the reason why is because once that became county property, then the county could regulate and, in fact, tell them they couldn't ride their four-wheelers, that they may ride up and down the roads on the ditches out there.
Well, that'd be a good improvement.
For some people. Other people move out there for that reason. And
I think the commissioners have to take this into consideration when they're planning a county for the safety, health, and welfare of the residents there.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, what we're dealing with is something that was started back in 1911. And I have a situation very similar to you. I not just can sympathize with you. I live it on a daily basis. In fact, the road in front of my house is owned by the county, and has been since 1930. And the county will not maintain my road. The county will if I bring it up to county standards, and that's only going to cost me $250,000 to do so. So
Well, then, don't you think this should have been settled when? Well, it was settled in court when you wanted the roads improved before you made the subdivision plans.
Jim?
That was comment on that
Yeah.
lawsuit. Several years ago, the county initiated a special assessment program to pave Willow Street, Mr. Kahn owned 800 acres, and when he got his notice indicating his bill was going to be several hundred thousands of dollars, he sued the county to nullify the special assessment. And at that time, the county decided to just drop the special assessment, and the county paid for paving of Willow Street, which benefited pretty much that whole southeast Fellsmere area. And occasionally the county will pave a particular road if it serves a large number of property owners. But the lawsuit was centered around a special assessment, and there was another lawsuit. Mr. Luke pulled out onto 109th Street and hit a vehicle and sued the county because we weren't mowing the grass alongside the road. Well, you know, that suit went to court, and I don't know the outcome of it. But anyway, there have been some lawsuits in the area, but they've been particular suits that have addressed particular issues, and you can't simply say that you know, these lawsuits are scaring the county into not doing certain things. But you know, liability is a consideration.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Lino, what I would probably prefer to do is to meet with the residents that are on a particular road and take it one piece at a time. I imagine that you have some people here that are from 87th, some people here that are probably on 83rd and 79th. And what it's going to take is it's going to take an increase of right-of-way other than just what you're talking about. Unfortunately, the simple solution and the common sense, it appears, would be just to run a grader down through there. There's plenty of room to do it, and you do it on the other side. And it's not necessarily that won't work as much as the Pandora's box that it opens up long-term. For the 110 miles in the community that really the county does not have the financial wherewithal planned to take care and address that. If there's some residences of a particular street, I'll be more than happy to sit down with you and let you know what we're trying to do. Long and short, it is going to entail some right-of-way. It is going to entail some expense on the property owner's part, much like what we've done in Vero Lake Estates. The improvements in the roads, it has really, not all of it, but a lot of the improvements in there are based on the MSBU that the residents pay on their tax bill as a special assessment above and beyond their regular tax bill for these municipal services. It may not be something that the entire street it wants to do, but I'll be more than happy to sit down with all of you and see if we can't work something out.
Well, in theory, that would be a nice thing to do, but in reality, these lots just started selling and building on a couple of years ago. So if you have 40 residents, there's 20 5-acre pieces on each side of the road.
Yes, sir.
Most of these people aren't even in this state right now. Well, so how could we ever do that?
Well, like I said, that's why I said residences, not owners. You know, the people that are affected by it. And see if there's something that we can, you know, if you'd like an MSBU to help maintain the properties. That was really, when we met with 93rd Street residents off of west of Park Lateral, it was a large fee, if you will, to bring it up to county standards and to the St. John standards to require, or for the runoff and the sediments and all the other things that we didn't have to deal with in 1978 when we had that agreement with the Fellsmere Farms.
Yeah, I know. I was invited to that meeting, and I declined to go because I'd rather get an opinion on this and a decision by the commission, so that you all can be responsible for your decisions on it.
Yes, absolutely.
But we're going to have problems out there.
Without a doubt, and it's going to get worse as we get more and more people building these 5-acre parcels. So I will, if you could hang around long enough for our first recess, I'll give you my business card. It's got my cell phone on it. I'll sit down with you and let's see if we can come up with something. We haven't yet with 93rd Street, but at least we're back to the drawing board with them. And still working, so that's
okay. Well, I thank you for your time, and I know Mr. Kelly would like to speak on it, so I'd like to thank you for letting me yak.
Thank you, sir. Someone else?
Guess you're not doing a 3-minute time limit, are you?
It works so well with you. I'm going to go along with it. Should we put it back in now? The former commissioner, chairman, wants you to be just limited to 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. I will. My name is Leroy Kelly.
Not at all.
I live at, well, I'm building a house. It's being completed this month at 14020. I'm Mr. Lino's neighbor. In regard to some of the things that I've heard, I wasn't aware of, and I do have a copy of the memo. I've done some research. It was 1979 memo was written wherein the county agreed to to grade these roads. I think the agreement was that Fellsmere Farms would supply the dirt and the county would grade the roads. In regard to the tracks that are involved, I looked up on the Phillipsmore Farm, and our track is included in that original agreement. Now, in the agreement, it does say, as a matter of fact, that either party can cancel this at any time. So it appears as though the county has elected not to live up to that part of the agreement. In regard to funds, I do have access to the total tax roll. Since 2003, the values have gone up $5 billion. The taxes collected on that are right at $106 million. All we're asking for is the guy to cross the road. We hired somebody for $200. He did it. And we're not asking to buy a new grader. We're just asking to let the driver cross the road and grade the road so we can drive on it. In regard to giving up property to do this, then maybe we could discuss that. But in the interim, why can't we just grade the road? We're not asking that you buy a new grader. I know it's not going to cost $200 because that was a private enterprise that did this. I don't understand. It seems, it's been my experience that when you come to talk to someone and there's 1,000 different excuses, in the final analysis it's just because they don't want to do it. It's either the road's not wide enough, there's not enough funds, there's not enough taxes. There's a million reasons why you can decide not to do something. But in the interest of fairness, the guy is out there. We're not asking him to go 3 or 4 miles. We're just asking him to cross the paved road and do our road.
How long is your road?
That's a mile. And it doesn't meander. It doesn't go up on people's property.
But there are 4 or 5 different, well, there are
about
hundreds of them. But
there are 5 houses out there. We're paying $6,000 a year in taxes. And $30,000, just the houses that are built out there. It's not going to cost $30,000. I watch the commission meetings and I see you decide to hire someone to analyze this, or you can decide you hire someone to do a study on this, and you do that with just a stroke of the pen. And all we're asking for is it's not going to cost you $100 to grade that road. You've already got the driver out there and you've already got the grader out there.
Well, we're going to hire Mr. Davis for free, and he's going to go out there and resolve.
Get what you pay for, huh? No.
But then you might talk with them about an MSTU and things like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to come up with a way to say yes. And I agree with you. It frustrates me to no end whenever I understand exactly what everybody's talking about, because, again, I live it on a daily basis, and everybody finds no reasons for it not to work. And we've come up with a solution, and they didn't like it. I understand why, and we're going to go back and we're going to modify that to a certain extent and see if we can't come up with a reason to get it to work and try to create a policy. And again, if it was just one road, I believe you'd have everybody up here say yes right now.
Well, I think also there is a solution. They can give the right-of-way so as we can put a road in.
And that's where we're going to...
That is the solution,
well,
but there...
It's not just the ditch. Now, the ditch is Phillipsmore Farms.
Right.
And supposedly, according to this paperwork, they own that, they control it. So can we just arbitrarily take that ditch from Phillipsmore Farms and...
No, you have to give some of your property.
Well, our property, you'd have to cross the ditch to get to my property. So it's going to have to be the people south of Phillipsmore ditch.
Other people would have to give who are...
Giving the right-of-way is not the answer, because you own the right-of-way in front of my house.
But it is the answer here. We're on private property otherwise. I mean, you are on...
Right, but that's only half the problem. Because of the residents of 93rd, we have the right-of-way, or can get the right-of-way.
It's a little disconcerting to think that you could just arbitrarily say, all right, we're not going to provide services to these citizens. Well, you don't do that with police work. You don't do it with firefighters. But now you've said, well, you're on a road we don't want to grade, so we're not going to provide the services. It just seems unfair. The road across the street is exactly the same width. They've not done any of these improvements you're talking about, and you grade that road.
Yeah, I was surprised you work in the property appraiser's office and you didn't check that out when you built that house.
I was a little surprised that you guys wouldn't provide services.
Mm-hmm. There are services provided, just not all of them you want.
You have all these programs. You're going to come up with a program for juveniles, come up with a program for all these things just with a stroke of the pen, because it serves the good of the community. You've got taxpayers out there paying $6 a year, and all we're asking for you to do is grade the road, and it's not going to cost you that much.
The problem is we leapfrog over and do your road, and then somebody else wants us, because now we're closer to theirs, they want to extend it, and it continues on and on and on. And the problem is maintaining all these roads.
Well, with
we're going to have more and more people building on these dirt roads, and they need to come up with a solution, and they need to pay. And I'll guarantee you your taxes are less living on a dirt road than they are living on a paved road. because the property's worth less.
No, it's not. My property is going to be valued at over $300,000.
No, I'm not saying your property is not valuable. I'm just saying that if you were on a paved road and you had other amenities and so, if you work in the property owner's or property appraiser's office, it's based on what that piece of property is, where it's located, whether it's on a paved road or a dirt road or even has access. So all of that comes in, and we're just opening up we went through this years ago too. We go through it periodically because people want their roads paved, or they want them graded, and they want them done at taxpayers' expense. And you bought
at our expense.
Well, okay. Well, I don't want to argue. It's just that the bottom line is that this is bigger than just your road. You got to look at the whole county and the precedent we would be setting. And do we want to be into the business of grading dirt roads and having problems with drainage and everything else that comes along, or do we want those roads, when people develop them, to be paved and put proper drainage in, like they've been working on in Vero Lakes Estates?
Well, to tell you the truth, sir, we feel disenfranchised. We pay $6,000 a year in taxes, and we don't know what benefits we're getting for it.
Well, I could.
All right, we could argue
on that.
Argue all night long. Let's move.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
Sandra.
let me ask one last question. He did make a statement, the gentleman did make a statement that originally his road was in the project, and we arbitrarily decided to take it out. Could we have a little research done on that and see if that is correct? And I would, like that information.
What are you talking about? His piece was Mr. Kahn's piece before he bought it, and it's on the west side of Willow. The east side of Willow is in fact being maintained by the county.
But he said that his property was once part of that agreement.
Yeah, all of it is. The whole Fellsmere Farms water control area. No?
I wonder, look, we can't hear you on the video if you're not talking at the microphone. But Wesley, would you look into this situation too with your excursions out there? And
yes, and
we need to move along.
Yes, I will.
Okay. No other discussion. We'll send Wesley out there, and hopefully he can come to some agreement with the document that Sandra has. You want Wesley to have that? Here's your walking
We'll
paper.
look into this.
I probably need to give it to
Okay.
Collins.
Give it to Mr. Paladin.
Collins.
All right, item B number 2, request to speak from Alfred Baldwin regarding Lindsay Lane's swale and road improvement issues. Letter is dated December 13th. Yes, sir. Mr. Baldwin.
Good morning, Commissioners, staff. I can tell what the county administrator has done. I'm the buffer between the former speaker and 43rd Avenue coming up next. And I'll stay within your 3-minute rule, I hope. My purpose
He doesn't have that rule.
We don't have it anymore.
You can speak as long as you want.
Well, I'll try to be brief.
A couple hours if you like.
You'll take a recess after me, I know.
9:30 we need a recess. I mean 10:30.
I think it's important to come forward. I've spoken to several residents at Lindsay Lanes. We are a small community, approximately a little over 100 homes. And I think it's imperative that I put on the record just what's occurred regarding the issues that I spoke to this commission several months ago. When I spoke, within a matter of days, Commissioner Newberg, Mr. Davis, I think Terry Cook, Chris Kafer, several other individuals appeared at the site, immediately surveyed what we were requesting, and I will say within a matter of days, survey team was out there doing work and did work for several weeks. At this time, the swales are being improved, and the road has been completed on 47th Court. Originally, 47th Court, when I talked to Mr. Kafer, was to have been just patched. And what ended up happening was the entire road was repaved. Surface was put on approximately 1.5 to 2 inches. I'm coming forward to thank each and every individual that was involved in this project, especially the Commission for listening to us. And as I said, I want to make it a public record that sometimes I'm not sure of the protocol here, but I think it's important that someone comes forward and says something positive about what the county is doing. And we've seen nothing but positive results. And the work has been completed, is being worked on. I've spoken to Mr. Davis several times, and he turn me over to Mr. Kafer, who headed the project. And from Mr. Kafer all the way down to the last individual was out, I think his name was D, as he introduced himself to me to verify that the road was done correctly. There is in place checks and balances to make sure that what the county is being told by the developer, the builder, the workers, the subcontractors is being done. I will say the county responded. The individuals from different offices came out. We have nothing positive to say. I mean, everything we have to say is positive. The work is, as far as we're concerned, completed. It's been excellent work. We want to thank the commission. We want to thank the county administrator. We want to thank the individuals that were involved. I haven't named everybody. I think I've just named a few. One other factor I'd like to mention that's not on this agenda was code enforcement. On 2 occasions, individuals in our development had the necessity to call code enforcement. And I'm not sure, I think it's under Mr. Keating, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I'd like to compliment the individuals that work for code enforcement because, again, the issues were immediately addressed. The resolution was immediate. And I think Mr. Keating should know that his people are doing a fine job. We've also had individuals contact Mr. Baird's office regarding some instances that were in the vicinity. Mr. Baird's office responded immediately. So I think it's time that somebody come forward and say something positive, and I'd like to thank Mr. Baird, Mr. Davis, and everybody else, right down to that employee D who was involved in the project, and Commissioner Newberger for taking the time to come out. And if the commissioners can take time to come out and look at a problem like Mr. Davis does, Mr. Newberger, I think the public should know this. It's not going to appear in the paper because only negatives appear. But I'd like to...
Henry's not even here.
Not even here.
Yeah, they're not here today. But I'd like to extend our thanks on behalf of the association, the subdivision there, the homeowners. We appreciate everything you people have done for us, and our thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. We appreciate you coming by and thanking us. And the employee you're talking about was D. Howard, I believe?
Yes, that's correct.
Young D. Howard. I've known him for years. Thank you very much. Okay, we are at number B3. Request to speak from George Sigler regarding recent issues regarding 27th Avenue and 43rd Avenue.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm George Sigler, and I've been a resident here for approximately 16 years. I own property on 27th Avenue, and I also own property as my residence on 31st Avenue Southwest, which is bracketed by 43rd Avenue and 27th Avenue. And I'm really not a politician. I've been, using a Navy term, sucked into politics in the recent weeks, and I've had occasion to go back into my history and read the Federalist Papers, James Madison, John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and get an appreciation for what I'm doing here today and what I have done in the recent past. But what concerns me today as a resident of this county, and the reason I'm here today, is to hopefully stop the process of the county of not looking at widening both 27th Avenue and 43rd Avenue. The reason I am here, and I know there are going to be folks here that are going to speak to the issue on 27th and 43rd Avenue for not widening those roads. I'm here to tell you today that common sense, I'm not a traffic engineer, but common sense would tell us that if we started widening those roads today, we would be too late. In my opinion, this commission and the county is in a reactive mode and not a proactive mode. You're doing a disservice to this community now and in the future if you don't look at widening this roads as soon as you can widen those roads. Now, I preluded this talk referencing the Federalist Papers and what our democracy was built on. And the democracy was basically built on the fact that we have to look out for the majority. The majority actually rules, but we have to look out for the rights of those minority folks. And the minority in this case, I'm telling you, are the folks that live, and I am one of them. I don't live on the 27th, but I own property on that road. The minority has spoken loudly. And anyone that's been in politics for very long has to realize that it's much easier to mobilize a small minority to come into this meeting and proclaim the goodness of not widening this road for the community. But the commission's job, and that's why we elect you, if everyone in this community that was affected by this decision not to widen these roads were here, we'd have to have this meeting in the Citrus Bowl. And I'm here to tell you that if this commission does not see that they are affecting thousands of people for the good of a few hundred, then I will mobilize people and we will have this meeting in the Citrus Bowl. I will assure you that. Now, I ran a few numbers. The people that live on both the east and west side of 27th Avenue and 43rd Avenue number about 589 lots. That's it. That's the total. The people that live, that are bracketed by those two roads, number almost 6,000. The subdivisions that you've approved from Enduro Road out 27th Avenue or Emerson coming into town number almost 3,000. And somehow in our wisdom, we've elected to listen to the minority here to the detriment of the majority. And I guarantee you, those folks, myself included, that are bracketed by 43rd and 27th Avenue do not appreciate, and I'll just quote from the newspaper here, the county proposing to gridlock, that's a quote, gridlock those roads. Well, we're in gridlock right now. When I came to this, when I knew I was coming to this meeting, and I don't mean to bend here, but this affects me greatly, and it's a safety issue. I called Mr. George Christopher, who understands on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I asked Mr. Christopher because I was trying to get information. And I'm not an engineer. I assure you, I'm not a traffic engineer. My background is as a pilot. But I talked to Mr. Christopher, and I asked him, I said, do you not think it's a good idea to widen those roads? And he said, well, George, I don't think the county wants to widen those roads. I said, are you talking about the few people that have mobilized on 27th and 43rd and come to the commission and put signs out in front of their houses, speak for the vast majority of the folks that are affected by those roads? And he says, well, yeah, I guess so. Well, I'm telling you, as commissioners, you have to look past that. You have to look to the majority. That's what we expect of you. That's why we have a commission, so you can represent the majority of us. Now, the other issue here is, and this really bothered me, and if Mr. Christopher's here, I'm sure he'll come up and speak to this issue. And I've never met the gentleman. I only spoke with him on the phone. But Mr. Christopher's reply to me about widening the roads, he said, George, if we widen the roads, more people will use them. Well, by God, how true that is. If we widen the roads, more people will use them, and that's why he's not in favor of widening the roads. Well, folks, with that kind of thinking, we're in big trouble here, I'm telling you. Yes, I'm 60 years old. I've lived a long time. I've seen, yes, when you have gridlock, you have to widen the roads. And sure, yes, Mr. Christopher's right. More people will probably use those roads. Now, I think in the immediate future, like I say, if we started widening those roads today, we'd be too late here. You already missed the boat on this one. We'd be too late. But one thing we could do to expedite the traffic flow, and we did this in Texas when I was a teenager, and we weren't the cutting edge of traffic flow in West Texas, believe me. But it wouldn't be impossible to synchronize the 7 lights from Enduro Road down to Highway 60. That's 7 lights you have to synchronize. Well, in the interim, until you widen those roads, you could at least expedite the traffic flow by using synchronized lights. And I would like to say one other thing about the widening of the roads. The state, when they came in and widened that bridge down between close to 5th Street Southwest, they widened that bridge wide enough because they saw what was going to happen in this county about those subdivisions and that raw land out south of Oslo Road, and they made that bridge wide enough because they anticipated that road would be widened. So that's the main issue I wanted to speak about, but I'll tell you another issue I wanted to bring up in regards to 27th Avenue. As I said, I own property on that road, and if Mr. Davis was still here, he could tell you that I've been trying to work with the county on developing some of that property. Just before Christmas, I read in the newspaper that, again, we have literally, and I'm speaking we because I'm part of it, and I've elected, I voted for a great many of you here on this commission. We, in our wisdom, have sold the county roads. Yes, we sold our county roads. How can you sell a road? Well, you sell the road by selling traffic flow, and that's what we did. We did this at the detriment of property owners like myself, and I know Indian River National Bank, and I'm not speaking for them. They've been here a long time in this community. They cannot develop a piece of property on the corner of Oslo Road and 27th Avenue because we, the county, sold the road. We sold the road. Yeah, how can you sell a county road? I'm aggravated about that. I pay taxes to build that road, and now we've elected to sell the road because we sold the traffic flow on the road, and Indian River National Bank can't build on their property because you sold to outside developers, probably out-of-state developers, the rights to use those roads. And it's going to affect my property when and if I decide to develop it. You're going to come to me and say, George, you can't develop it because we sold your right to use that road. Like I say, I didn't mean to vent, and I don't like to be here. I have a business to run, but I think this is important for the community. I think we have to look at the better good for the greater part of the community, and I applaud the folks on 27th and 43rd Avenue that I know are going to come here to speak. It's their right as an American citizen to do so. They need to stand up for those rights, but the county commission is here for the better good of the greater part of the community, and those roads have to be widened. We've missed the boat already. We're too late if we started tomorrow. The only way you could solve this problem is stop the subdivisions, but that's not going to happen. But you've approved those, and you've approved thousands of cars more coming down a road that's already congested. I really appreciate it, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Sigler? I think he's right in everything he says. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, a request to speak from Adrian Cuff regarding roads and growth, and Diane George regarding vigilance required for 43rd and 27th Avenue. Fact from December 21st.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Adrian Cuff. I live on 43rd Avenue, 695 43rd. Before I really get started, excuse me, I wanted permission to ask the commissioners a quick question, if I may, and also get a response, if it's permitted.
Oh, we're going to listen to what you have to say.
Okay. What I wanted to ask was, how many of you in this last month were lobbied by individuals concerning the widening of 27th and 43rd Avenue?
Probably all of us.
No one.
No?
Yeah.
You haven't never heard Mr. Beindorf last week?
Yeah, Mr. Beindorf was here last week.
I remember him speaking. Yeah.
And I don't mean publicly, I mean
Oh.
privately.
I was publicly.
Probably.
So.
Probably.
Yeah.
We get lobbied all the time about all sorts of
Well,
issues.
the reason I was asking is, were any of those private residents that live on 27th or 43rd?
Yes. Yep. About the widening and restrictions on both sides.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is that this issue has been addressed a myriad of times. Public workshops and meetings have been held, and the residents, who are also voters, have made their collective voices heard loud and clear. We don't want 5 lanes. We would like 3 lanes with sidewalks. There isn't room for a median. They've already made that clear. Your old staff has told you that. The streets can only be made 11 feet wide instead of 12 because there isn't room. But the commission has voted about a half a dozen times on this issue, sometimes for and sometimes against. However, the final vote was 5-0. The comp plan was amended, and the MPO and the long-range transportation plan was approved and submitted. I'd like to know, when is a vote final, and how many times are the commissioners going to change their minds? the last county commission election, the 27th and 43rd Avenue issue was a big part of the campaign. All of you who were running stated in your literature that, and were asked at interviews, public and television, how would you vote? And you all had said that you were against the widening of 5 lanes. 3 lanes were acceptable, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but I heard all the interviews. And that, you know, we took you at your word and believed you, and anyone who voted based on that thought you were going to stand by your word. Now, to the best of my knowledge, there is not any other new designs made for the road that I've seen, other than what has been done in the past. So a boulevard is really not even feasible. If you, the commission, can change your minds willy-nilly or change your vote at will, what about the voters? Can we possibly rescind our vote if we voted for the candidate based on your answers that we heard, you know, on television? We thought we were voting for people that stood up for what they had said. Maybe we can vote again, or isn't that possible? 43rd is not the only issue where the commission has changed their vote. But this is just a prime example. This is why I think the urban service line should be in the hands of the voters and not left to 5 individuals who can change their mind after they're lobbied. Everyone today is Sue happy. It seems that a lot of the decisions that are made by this commission, or the commission, and even in the past, are under the threat of being sued. And that's just wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I thought all the counties had comp plans, and not to only control growth, but to manage and plan for the future of the county, to plan expansion of roads and construction of new roads, to apply the proper zoning and building applicable and suitable for the needs of our residents in our area. Isn't that why it's called a comp plan? Because it is a plan. Well, I was told that at build-out, with all the facts and the figures that we had, and with the urban service line intact right now, that our population at build-out would be about 300,000 to 360,000 people. Well, isn't that why we plan for expansion and establish certain zoning throughout the county? So if that is the case, then why can we be sued for sticking with the plan? This does not make a lot of sense to me. Why should we be forced to change the established zoning under the threat of lawsuits? Why should we be forced to accelerate road expansion ahead of time because high-powered attorneys and developers with deep pockets think money can buy them whatever they want, no matter what the cost and adverse effects to our beautiful county and to our residents? And why is staff so eager to change and undermine our plan? I'm not against progress. We're going to build, we're going to expand, that's just life. However, when it comes with total disregard for our comp plan, changes our zoning, allows big developers to buy up concurrency in advance, in turn begetting the onset of more threats of lawsuits from businesses who can't build on their property, something is wrong. It doesn't take a rocket science to see something isn't working right. The time has come when accountability is mandatory. We the people want answers and won't accept lip service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commission.
Diane.
My name is Diane George, and I live at 1515 27th Avenue. And I don't have any property to develop on 27th Avenue, but I do have a question for Mr. Baldwin. Is he still here? Mr. Baldwin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's back there. Yes.
Alfred Baldwin.
You're going to...
The gentleman that just spoke. He had said he wanted to organize a group.
No, that's
Mr. Sigler.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Sorry, Alfred.
Of course.
You're off the hook.
He already did that.
No, he loved us.
Property on 27th Avenue for development. And you had mentioned that you're already a member, or no, you want to organize?
Miss George, did you care to address us, or you want to make a speech?
No,
to the
I just
audience?
have a question for him. He said he wanted to organize something. Isn't he not already a member of an organization called the Concerned Citizens? No, okay. All right, just asking. Anyway, we need an optometrist. And I was wondering if Chris Smith would be available. Because you all seem to have tunnel vision regarding 27th and 43rd Avenue. One eyeball goes down 27th and the other eyeball goes down 43rd. In our pledge this morning, liberty and justice for all, which it just kind of hit my brain here because Mr. Barrett, in regards to a little man who came before this commission and said, I bought this property and I can't live in my house because it was never disclosed to me of what you were going to do. Or was this Mr. Collins that made the comment? It was one of the two of you, okay.
I don't know what you're talking
about.
I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
I know you have no clue, so it may have been Mr. Collins, but the comment was said in an arrogant manner, whichever it was said by. We're not realtors. And the issue died. Now, the last commission meeting, the bank can't build because a big developer bought up all the capacity. Now everybody jumps. Oh my God, we've got to help the bank. We'll just have to destroy the residents on our residential streets to help the bank. Why, Mr. Barrett or Mr. Collins, whoever mentioned it, why didn't you tell Mr. Barquette that you're not realtors? And also tell Mr. George Sigler that you're not realtors. The point is, what is good for the old man should be the same answer for the bank. Mr. Barquette is good for a three-letter word, sue. Stand your ground, the answer is no. And Mr. Newberger, I called you and asked you if you wanted to buy my house, and you said no, you already have one. Then I asked you why you are doing what you are doing. You said that we must make and widen the road because we were expecting 100,000 people coming in here. I can have a dinner party and invite 10. And maybe 2 will show up. This is a self-made crisis you are orchestrating. What are you going to do with the residents who are already here? Bury us in mass graves? Stand your ground. Take your stand with the bank. Mr. Baird or Mr. Collins, tell them that you're not realtors. And tell Mr. Ziegler also. We don't have to allow any more cars on the road, and if you don't stop it here, then you'll not stop it at all. Have you driven down 27th Avenue and turned left on Oslo? That gives new meaning to the word abortion. How dare you? And Mr. Newberger, you are the epitome of the John Kerry syndrome. On May 17th, 2004, you voted to reject the 5-laning. On June 1st, 2004, which I call Black Tuesday, you won a 3-2 vote to restore the 5 lanes. Then on November 16th, you again rejected the 5 lanes. Now today, for the 4th time, you want to bring it back because you shouldn't have supported the residents. Is there a doctor in the house? And Tom and Wesley, if you support this charade, we are all in trouble. Letting this go any further screams for a competency hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, thank you. Item number B5, request to speak from Jerry Swanson regarding the 43rd Avenue widening project.
Good morning, Commissioners. Happy New Year to you all. I like the smiles. Wondering why I'm here. I went to the MPO meeting on the 21st of December, and many of you were there. And we were voting, excuse me, you were asked to vote on road requirements in the years 2010, 2011, 2017, 2030. You made those decisions. You voted for some $630 million worth of road improvements with the DOT. I can remember sitting here some 10 years ago when 43rd Avenue was approved to be widened. And back in those meetings, it was always known that Clemens Highway was going to be widened. Obviously, it didn't get handled. We didn't get why the roads are not widened. And as Andy Beindorf addressed the commission a few weeks ago, he's not able to build on 27th Avenue and Oslo Road because there's no concurrency. I agree with Adrian Cuff that we're in a very, very difficult situation in Indian River County. And I also admit, and I think I'm somewhat intelligent, I also admit this is a problem that's very, very complex. And I don't hope to have the answers. And I don't know that there's anybody sitting in this audience that hopes to have the answers. But I do know that we have problems. I do know that we have not enough infrastructure, and staff will back me up on this, to support the residents that we have coming to Indian River County. Mr. Beindorf can't build his bank. We can't build feeders for the hospital, for their new heart program, because there's no concurrency left. That is a real issue. We've got to do something about it. And I think it's time we got together and talked about the greater good for Indian River County, and not for a few residents here and not for a few residents there. But let's talk about the total good of Indian River County. We have an issue, we have some problems, we have some complex problems. Let's sit down and let's work these out. Lawsuits are not the answer. I don't think anyone in this audience or anyone here wants it. But what we want to do is if we're going to have a moratorium in Indian River County, call it a moratorium. Stand up and call it a moratorium. Don't do it by playing games. And the time has come for 2006 for us to be serious about how we fix this complex problem. The comprehensive plan worked very well for many years. It took a lot of input. We can't continue to band-aid issues and fix one here and one there. This is a complex problem. This is where we need professional help. And I support it. I offer my services for anything that I can do to help. But let's get our heads together. Let's get an action plan going, and let's make 2006 a turnaround year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. That ends our public discussion items, and we need to take a break every hour and a half so the typists can catch up on the hearing impaired on the screen. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Back to order, please. Public notice items, we have no items. County Administrator has no items. Departmental matters have no items under Community Development nor Emergency Services. Under General Services, revision to Guaranteed Maximum Price, GMP, and Owner's Contingency for New County Administration Building. Memo dated December 22nd on page 245.
Good morning. Tom Frame, General Services Director. What this item involves, we had reported back to the board on December the 6th a number of direct owner purchases which had yielded a little over $75,000 worth of sales tax savings. And we'd also reported some value engineering that had also given us some savings, and that had allowed us to reduce the GMP, and it had allowed us to establish an owner's contingency. One of the direct owner purchases that we had issued a purchase order for was to Ferguson Enterprises, and it was for some pipe. And that purchase order we had issued was for a little over $214,000, and it was for some corrugated aluminum pipe. It should have been for HDEP plastic pipe, which would have been at about $199,000. It was $14,000. I'll get the actual number, $14,402.20 less than it should have been. So we subsequently reissued the purchase order for the correction. We had already agreed to take the plastic pipe as part of the initial GMP when we negotiated with Turner Construction. What that in fact did was causes us to actually reduce the amount of owner contingency that we reported to you on December 6th, and it also requires us not to take the total savings that we had indicated that would reduce the GMP by the amount of $14,000. We still have a reduced GMP. It just won't go as low as the amount we originally reported because we had already taken that savings. So in order to keep the record straight on it, I wanted to bring the matter back to the board and identify that issue.
Do you consider the aluminum pipe to be better than a polypropylene, or?
No, we thought, well, actually, we had agreed that the plastic pipe was as good as the corrugated aluminum pipe, particularly for the type of usage it was being used for some of the stormwater under the site there. So we think it's as good value, and we'd agreed to take that initially. So
well, the aluminum is more, so I was wondering if you felt it was better.
Not necessarily.
Okay. Then why are we paying more for it?
No, we're not. No, we're actually coming back. We're actually buying the plastic, which is
going to go back to the plastic. I didn't get that here.
Rather
Sorry.
than the $214,000 that we'd initially issued the purchase order for.
All right.
I'll move staff recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item C2, selection MGT of America for Needs Assessment Plan and approval of agreement to provide needs assessment plan. From the memo.
Move staff recommendation.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Run, Karen, run.
Thank you.
Karen. Karen, did you have a comment?
Run, run, run.
We have nothing on items D, E, F, G, H. 11, departmental matters, Public Works, Civil Engineering Land Surveying Agreement with Arcadis G and M Inc. for widening of 20th Avenue from 25th Street Southwest to 21st Street Southwest in River County, project number 0541.
Move.
Mr. David.
Move staff recommendation, alternative number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman.
Discussion.
Yes. Is this going to take care of some of the drainage issues along 20th Avenue and 8th Street in the northwest corner of 20th
No,
Avenue?
sir. This is in the Highlands. This is way south of 8th Street.
25th Street Southwest, forgive me. Okay.
Right, it's almost a South County line.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 11I2, right-of-way acquisition, 58th Avenue south of Oslo Road, future 58th Avenue roadway widening. Wayne Collier, owner.
Move staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Utility Services, J1, Tuscany Lake Subdivision Developers Agreement.
Tuscany Lakes.
Anyone wish to address this item?
I move staff recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Eric, you have any comments on this?
For the record, Eric Olson, Director of Utilities. The project here is actually an extension agreement with the Tuscany Lakes to extend a water and sewer main from 58th westward to approximately the Humane Society on the western side of Tuscany Lakes. The agreement will basically have the developer construct at their cost the water and sewer mains. These are master plan lines. We will then reimburse the developer back less line extension fees over a period of 5 years. So.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 11J2, authorization to accept extension of St. Johns River Water Management District Alternative Water Supply Cost Share Agreement for Integrated Water Resources Program to reduce stormwater and reverse osmosis concentrate into the Indian River Lagoon, UCP 2097.
Move staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is the one north of Grand Harbor?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. County Attorney has no issues. Commissioners' items, Commissioner Thomas Lowther, former chairman.
That doesn't
Discussion.
bother him.
I'm just as happy for you to say that.
Ex-chairman, but
I appreciate that.
discussion regarding the citrus canker meeting.
I want to bring that up, Mr. Chairman. Basically, all y'all have, I think all y'all have a copy of the letter that I sent to Commissioner Bronson. It had been discussed that we tried to hold a workshop, I think, on the 12th or the 13th, Kim, is that correct, with St. Lucie County being able to do that. I had a conversation with Commissioner Bronson last week, and unfortunately he can't make that meeting. So I wanted to bring that up to you all to see. He said he could send his second in command to have the meeting. I think there was some discussion, and Sandra, you might be able to mention that. I think, I believe he can come in February.
Thank you, Mr. Lowther, former Mr. Chairman.
Still Mr. Lowther.
Well, I didn't say, I said former Mr. Chairman. Don't anticipate what I'm going to say.
I never do. Can I sit over there?
Not yet, that's Gary.
I do believe that we set a meeting, not a workshop. So I just want to go by exactly what was in the letter and exactly what we all agreed on, 5-0. And it was also asked that Commissioner Bronson come. He is an elected official and he is a policy setter, as we are. And if his, I don't know how the dates, the 13th and 14th, came up, other than maybe for juggling, but I think it reads the whole month of January. If he can come any time in January,
okay,
that would be appropriate. And we did want to invite the County Commission from St. Lucie because they're very involved. Maybe they can't all come, maybe one or two of them can come, but it was mainly a meeting that we invited certain 3 people. And I think that would be appropriate to keep it that way. If he cannot come, he simply cannot come. But I don't think it needs to be staff.
I would agree. I think we need to work around his schedule. Whenever he's ready, I think we can make ourselves ready.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And that was the whole reason I was bringing this forward.
Yeah, the important thing is to have him here, I think, and so whatever his schedule allows, we need to have him here and not a subordinate.
Is someone going to contact him directly by phone or another letter?
Well, maybe we all 5 better call him. And since you're chairman.
Well, I think now, Mr. Chairman, yes, since you are chairman, you have the opportunity of giving him a phone call and letting him know that we've had this meeting, had this discussion.
Okay. Do we need to amend our ordinance so if it's just in case he can't make it in January, or do we just?
Well, no, he has to say he can't come if he can't come.
All right. Our resolution or whatever we passed that said January.
I would like to ask him when he can be here.
Right.
The other 2 people.
I understood he was not available in the month of January.
The month of January was busy for him.
Okay.
Well, he has to say, he has
I think, unfortunately, Sandra, he told me he is a constitutional officer and he can't be demanded to come anywhere.
I don't think anybody's demanding at all. And if somebody has put that word, to him, that it was a demand, I think that needs to be clarified because it was not a demand at all.
Correct. I think it was a matter of his schedule being available.
So-
I don't know if January is.
You didn't tell him he was demanded to come, did you?
When
I
would a
didn't tell
good
you
day of the
anything.
week be? Would, like a Tuesday afternoon, we're generally done here by noon. Would that be good? Everyone will be free?
Or an evening meeting. If
Evening?
he's coming
Okay.
through the state and he's going to be different places, we can accommodate.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we just invite him and ask him to come at his earliest convenience, and if that be February, fine, but I think the important thing is to have him there, and then all of us here that it affects, we certainly have a higher stake in it than he does. I think we'll adjust our schedules to meet with him.
Okay. I can do that. Anything else on that item?
That's it.
Okay, next item is mine. Reconsideration of 4 laning 27th Avenue and 43rd Avenue. No backup. And Ms. George is right. I changed my mind. I voted with the audience that last time I said that's what they want, that's what I'll do. But after I heard some more comments on it, yes, I was lobbied, that it's probably the wrong thing to do, that we need to bite the bullet and look at the whole county as a whole. And I would propose, I can't make motions, but I would propose we get back on track with the 4 laning and do what our expert staff, our planners, our engineers, everyone says we need, and I think most of the people in the community.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, and we've talked, and I know with Phil Mattson, there are other solutions rather than 5 laning, 27th, 20th, or 43rd, with the extension of 43rd Avenue being 4 lanes south. Also, 58th, 66 is in the work. They've been back in front of us with a plan. Also, we've gone through DCA to get where we are today, and I happen to agree with the position the current board currently has. So that's
One comment I'd like to make on that, and I guess this is addressed to Diane, because I haven't changed my mind, and I don't think she said I've changed my mind. She was just hoping I don't listen to Commissioner Newberger, and I try not to listen to any of these up here.
That's mutual.
And I agree with that. And maybe you're better off staying down there. I'm truly not, and maybe it was Adrian that made this comment, I'm truly not a firm believer that a boulevard project cannot take place. I know we have talked this thing for 2 years, and 43rd has become a serious issue. Yes, the Green Book, according to Mr. Davis, the state regulations stipulate that we cannot and don't have enough right-of-way for that. If we as a county decided to build a county road, I believe we can do a small median in the middle. You have 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes going another way, design a project that all the residents of Indian River County would like. That's where my comment came from the Press Journal. I haven't swayed one way or another from 5 lanes. I'm still a firm believer that 5 lanes of asphalt don't need to go right down that road. And I haven't swayed from that position one way or another. Now, I don't know, Jim, if you can talk on that. I know you mentioned it. If we do build this road, if we did it to county specs, we open ourselves to lawsuits.
During the discussion about 4 laning with a median, I believe my only comments were that if we do that, we will have to acquire some more right-of-way, and we could encroach into the 25-foot front yard setback and perhaps into that area where people park their cars between the garage and the sidewalk. Now, I didn't say it couldn't be done. I was just indicating that some more right-of-way, maybe 2 feet, 3 feet on both sides, might be needed in addition to what we've negotiated in the past. And I do have a table just to show you graphically what I've done. This is a list of perhaps 30 to 40 property owners we have worked with along 43rd Avenue north of 8th Street. Now, our project never went south of 8th Street, where Mrs. Cuff lives and many of the people that have been against the project live. Our project terminated at 8th Street. And we've worked with these people. We have paid them $402,000 to date for additional right-of-way and for landscaping along their frontage. And if we would like to introduce a median between the northbound and southbound lanes, we can do that. It may mean going back to these 30 or 40 property owners and negotiating 2 or 3 more feet of right-of-way. And I do have a list of which of those properties are single-family, which are multifamily, on both sides of 43rd Avenue. 43rd Avenue, there's only 14 homes between 12th and 16th. There's between 8th and 12th, there's only 13. So, you know, we're not talking about a huge residential neighborhood that we cannot do some landscape mitigation along their frontage. You know, we would have to go back and perhaps secure 2 or 3 more feet of right-of-way. And probably for 95% of these properties, they can still park their car between the garage and the sidewalk if we only take 2 or 3 more feet. But my comments earlier about the median were simply that in the 80 feet of right-of-way we have now, today, we probably can't fit it in unless we go back and negotiate a little bit more right-of-way.
Jim, let me ask you this. The bridge that was put down by Forest Lake, that's a 5-lane bridge? Or a 3-lane bridge?
Well, there's a 2-lane bridge there today.
We're replacing a new bridge.
We are. We're replacing that. We were going to build a 3-lane bridge based on your last action, expandable in the future if for some reason it had to be expanded. But we were planning on building a 3-lane bridge.
I think the issue that I have too is how do you if this were 5 lanes from State Road 60 or 26th Street to 8th Street, how do you go from 4 lanes and a turn lane to the south side of 8th Street that's what, 3 lanes or 2 lanes?
Yeah, you would drop off a lane at the intersection of 8th Street. You'd make you could simply, in the northbound lane, you could just open up that new lane on the north side of 8th. On the south, in the southbound lane, you make that a right turn lane onto 8th and drop that lane out and transition back to the 3 lanes very comfortably. It's done all the time. You simply
just like it is north of Road 6, north of 26th Street on
right.
58th Avenue.
You just stripe that southbound lane a right turn lane onto 8th and not a 3 lane south of the intersection.
And right now we're at level of service E plus 20%. That's over capacity, correct?
Yeah. Chris has the new latest traffic count numbers. I have them here also if you'd like to see them. Just based on...
Do we have that?
Here we go.
I'd like to look at that while he's speaking.
These are all the ones.
Now, what does this mean?
If you go to the second page, 2 out of 3, we've got 27th Avenue. All this is a summary of the percentage of capacity. From Oslo to 4th Street, it looks like on 27th, we're at 100% of capacity, right?
Where's that again, Joe? What'd you say?
Second page.
Page 2 of 3. It's highlighted almost halfway down, starts 27th.
Okay, 43rd, 27th.
I think you got to remember that St. Lucie County is really starting to affect us at our borders on 27th and 43rd a lot more than we had anticipated with all the DRIs. And I think, you know, we may say, well, we're just encouraging that traffic, but the problem when we widen it, the problem we have is a safety issue. You're going to have the same amount of cars going down that road, whether it's 3-laned or 5, and it's safer with 5. It's a very hard situation.
Please.
The 2005 capacity on the next to the last column on the right is the E plus 20 capacity that you recently approved. That's 19,200 cars a day. And if you look between 12th and 16th Street, we're already at 14,792. We have 2,300 vested. We've approved an additional 2,800. So if you add that up, we're almost at the E plus 20 capacity already. Now, if St. Lucie County, if that development that's proposed in St. Lucie County happens, that's going to add 12,700 trips on that link.
Yeah, let me ask you, Jim, with these projected capacity percentages, that's taking into consideration all of the capacity that's been bought.
Yeah, that's the vested column.
Some of that may not be built for years. Is that correct?
The way things have been going, 2 or 3 years seems to be a built-out number on many of these developments. Now, if our economy turns down, if mortgage rates go up, and who knows what's going to happen 3 or 4 years from now, we could be in a downturn cycle. But keep in mind, Palm Beach County's full, Broward County's full, Martin County is very restrictive. St. Lucie seems to be, more open for development from what I can see, just my personal opinion, than our county. And, this is a different environment that we're in now. I mean, it used to be that South Florida had aggressive development. South Florida is built out pretty much, right to the Everglades.
Well, and that's what, what concerns me is not only what's happening here, but what's going to happen in the future south of our county line.
Right.
I was just reading the thing in the mail that we got a week or so ago about comments by our staff back to St. Lucie County, and they're talking about paving, possibly 4-laning and paving Oslo Road west of I-95. Continuing 104th or 106th or 114th Street, which don't even show up on my map, down to Route 60. And that's going to open all that up to put even more pressure on rezoning and development. And that's a part of, building the 4 lanes and making room for more development and more growth. And more pressure to amend our comp plan. And this all ties together, and I think that some of the things that's been suggested by, with other ways to alleviate the problems on this road, and we aren't going to alleviate them completely, with 66th Avenue that we're working on, and the other things we're working on are going to help to some degree. But I think we've got a couple of problems here. One is we've been addressing at this meeting, and that is when do we sell our capacity on these roads, at building permit for the house or allowing them to build, to come in and buy them all in advance. And I think that's something that we need to address, and that's going to help capacity, and if we could do something with that, may change things around a little bit. But I've got a concern about just continuing to build 4 lanes and allowing the rapid growth to continue. Build it and they'll come. There's no question about it.
I think another comment, Jim, and this goes back to probably the 2004 special call meeting that we had at night when I made the comment, I know we've only looked at this for 3-laning to 8th Street, or actually staff was looking at 5-lane. I made the comment, what if we looked at 3-laning all the way to the South County line? And that never came back from staff, because staff says it's not going to work. You're not going to gain but 3%, 5% in your figures. I don't know. I've never seen that. I would be more in tune to go 3 lanes from 60 to South County line as opposed to 5 lanes to A Street, and then we're cutting the traffic off, because I know the big numbers are between 60 and A Street. I know that.
Right. It's a kind of like a radius of influence. There's more demand for the northbound traffic to get to the State Road 60, big box retail, mall areas, employment areas. So 43rd collects traffic beginning at State Road 60 and going down south to the South County line and into St. Lucie County. So the more of that traffic you have feeding onto the road, it compounds and grows as you approach State Road 60. Now, the problem with 66th Avenue is it terminates at Oslo Road. There's no opportunity to extend 66 into St. Lucie County. I-95 cuts across at an angle there.
66th does go across Oslo Road.
There's a dirt road south of Oslo. It's a dirt road,
right.
Only agricultural.
Exchange out there too.
But you can't connect it into St. Lucie County.
No, we're talking 58th of doing that, right? The Cobogard Road.
Yeah,
58th Avenue, we've made comment to St. Lucie County that we feel that St. Lucie County needs to come to the table and propose Cobogard Road connecting to Kings Highway to handle some of this development. And I-95 will be 6-lane shortly. So I-95 will be able to collect some of that St. Lucie County traffic. But keep in mind the mall and the big box retail, they all want to use 58th Avenue. It's going to get to the point where it may be overloaded to 4 lanes.
Well, the intersection already is.
Yeah.
The other thing that looking south, I see in one of the projections down there is, I think the smallest amount I've heard is around 2 million square feet of commercial development, maybe a regional mall or something occurring with all the growth with the 50,000 units are proposing in St. Lucie County, south of our county line. That may draw traffic from our mall going south instead
That's
of
an excellent
continuing
point.
north.
I think it will, but I think what you're going to see is it'll come after the residential, because they're not going to build those big box retail stores with no people there.
Right, and they're working on it. The other thing I might add, and I see Mr. Bear is in the audience, who's a traffic officer, I believe, was his last assignment anyway, I don't know what it is now, but what Mr. Baird said about safety, I'm not so sure that that's accurate or inaccurate. I think you may have possibly more accidents on 2 lanes or 3-lane roads than 5 lanes, but generally because of speed and other restrictions on the narrower roads, the accidents aren't, they're more property damage than personal injury.
I think, too, with the widening, and I know you can touch on him because he's not going to let it go. You can, from the 5-laning of State Road 60 and 43rd, because we know that intersection is inferior and it's going to be fixed. And it is going to be widened to 5 lanes from there to 16th. Right. That has been approved. I'm a firm believer that if we looked at 3-laning 43rd all the way to the South County line, and I think Bob made a comment before that we're even talking about 4-laning from the South County line Oslo Road. If that be the case, so be it. But I think that we need to continue from A Street to at least Oslo Road. You know, go with the 5-laning to 16th and look at 3-laning.
Oh, it is. That's in the plan now.
That's
in the plan.
But the 3-laning's not.
Yes,
we're stopping at A Street, aren't we?
No,
it's in the plan. The project we have in engineering only goes to 8th. And we're designing the bridge for 3 lanes that we talked about earlier at South Relief Canal. And we've got much of the 3 lanes in north of Oslo. We've put some 3-laning in there. You've got 3 lanes in on 43rd around 1st Street Southwest from South Relief Canal all the way through the commercial area. So that 3-laning is in our program all the way to Oslo.
I think it's a little strip between 8th and 4th that doesn't have the 3 lanes. That's
that's in our plan. It's just not in our current project that's in engineering now.
Well, I'm happy with that.
And I did want to touch on the safety issue. One of the problems with the 2-lane road is if there is an accident on the 2-lane or 3-lane road, there will not be any ability to move traffic around that accident. I mean, if it were a 4-lane road, you could move everything off until they can clean it up and maintain some type of traffic.
Jim, I think that's iffy. It depends on the accident, the seriousness of it.
It does.
And the speed
limit. And I can tell you that if you've been on I-95 when there's a fatal accident, they close it for hours.
They do, but they try to get one lane open. Usually, I think the modus of operandum is simply that you try to get it to 1 lane and open up at least 1 lane.
The only thing I'm saying is the percentage of having a more serious accident on a 5-lane or 4-lane is much higher than on a 2-lane or 3-lane, and because it's higher and can be more serious, you're going to obstruct traffic even longer because the investigation takes longer, and in some cases may take hours and hours because of what happened. But I'm just talking percentages. I think it's all negligible whether it's 3-lane or 5-lane.
Okay, is there any more discussion on this item? I've said my piece. I think you all are living in the past if you think that the traffic is going to increase just because we increase the size of the road. Traffic going to increase first, and we're going to try to alleviate that with a better road.
Lucy, other people.
Yeah, and then there are some serious issues that we need to address, and the main issue is the issue of concurrency, and I haven't seen a plan yet that has solved our concurrency problem. And as Ms. George and as Adrian eloquently pointed out, my position on this is I still feel like they screwed up whenever they paved the road, much less 4-laned it or whatever they're talking about doing.
That's why you want yours left dirt.
That's why I want mine left dirt, exactly. But
we should park next to Tom instead of me.
But the main thing is, and I went back and I pulled my question from the Press Journal to exactly what you're talking about with, where am I on this whole issue still? And my position then was to lower concurrency. I know that doesn't please everybody, but it does meet the needs of, in my opinion, of those that want to leave it alone, as well as those that want to have the opportunity to build in that area. And when you talk about justice for all, right now, whether the bank is a realtor, had a realtor, to me, that doesn't take away the fact that you have a financial institution that would like to build down there because they can't get concurrency. And where it's really going to get to be a burr in my saddle is whenever we get to the point where we have people that don't have the opportunity that you have to have a home in that area because they have a lot they can't build a house on. I would just assume say, I'm sorry, you can't come here to this county, let's blow the bridges up. That can't happen. That won't happen. I really do believe we have the issue of concurrency that we've got to work out. If we can't lower it, and the state has said, correct me if I'm wrong, we cannot lower it to F. If we do lower it to F, they'll grant that on a short-term basis, but we have to have a long-term solution so that we no longer need that level of service F after a certain period of time. Is that correct? Level of service E plus 20%, we're already past that. And I understand exactly what everybody's saying on 43rd Avenue. My concern right now is where we have some negative links. And those negative links are on 27th Avenue, south, near Oslo Road. And we need to do something, and we need to have a plan come forth. And as much as I would like to be able to say that what we have right now is what is working, it's clearly not, because we need to get the concurrency back in check so that we can still have these people in the community be able to enjoy the American dream and have a house just like everybody else.
And I might add that the bank problem is not my problem, but that also works in our favor. So the people who live down there use that bank don't have to jump on 43rd to go to wherever their next bank is. So it would limit the, yes, we're going to get to the audience. We're going to get to the audience. Who's first? Somebody?
Yeah.
Who had their hand up?
Good morning, Commission. My name is Jim Copeland. I've lived in Vero Beach, just west of 43rd Avenue, since I was 3. Now, I'm not going to go into how long ago that was.
20 years?
But close. But I'm going to agree with Mr. Swanson that, yeah, we have a problem. And I'm going to also agree with Mr. Sigler that it's too late. I suggest we be proactive and try to go where we already have 5 lanes, 58th Avenue. It's the busiest intersection in Indian River County. Let's expand south into St. Lucie, and I think that will take quite a bit of the problems with 43rd that we're having.
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What is it? Well, along those lines, the problem is capacity right now. And the way our system works, and Ms. Cuff, she eloquently stated, is, we have a plan, and we try to, that comprehensive plan, you try to address it based on that comprehensive plan, and that's the growth in South County until our November 16th meeting of last year, in fact, was based on that comprehensive land use plan. Then we changed the comprehensive land use plan, and that is what has put us in the situation where we are now with not having capacity on 27th Avenue.
Right.
And so it is that comp plan that we did change that has us in this situation. Now, my question is, of staff, is 58th Avenue going to solve our problem? Is it going to make it so that we have capacity at the intersection of Oslo Road and 27th Avenue?
Chris Mora, County Traffic Engineer. It will give more capacity to the area of 58th Avenue and the intersection, but it's not going to cure the problems on 27th and 43rd. No, not completely.
What, in your opinion, not just short term and not just today, but what, in your opinion, will solve our concurrency issues that we have on 27th in Oslo?
Well, the 2 roads that we're talking about, 27th and 43rd, they need to pass more traffic through them, regardless of whether it's traffic that's vested or approved by our county or in our county, or looking at the traffic that's going to be coming from St. Lucie County. They have to get more traffic through than a 2 or 3 lane road will provide. There's just no way to handle the traffic that's coming with a 2 or a 3 lane road. It has to be widened. That's been staff's position.
I have a question, if I may, Mr. Just to clarify, these numbers also that you're taking, I understand, I just want to make sure I understand it, but these are taken at peak season, peak times, correct?
That's correct. These are peak season and general peak hour counts. Now, the ones that we're giving on that chart that was just up on the screen are daily traffic volumes, but they are peak season, correct.
And what we're looking at is something that's an hour a day, maybe 2 hours, if you're an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, 3 months a year is where we're really backed up.
That's correct. Peak season, peak hour, right.
And even we could dispute when peak hour is, as we've talked about on 510. I believe it's early in the morning versus 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But still, whether it's we have to have some type of measurement, and we have the measurement whenever it may be. And that measurement, though, is telling us that we don't have concurrency on Oslo Road and 27th Avenue.
That's correct. Right now, the segment of 27th Avenue between 4th Street and Oslo Road is out of capacity at E plus 20%, at the elevated capacity that you've set.
And that's because we've sold an awful lot of trips where they aren't developed yet also.
Right. That's including the vested trips that have been purchased through concurrency.
And as a commission, I think we've kind of hit on several issues here. We've made it so that you can no longer buy the ghost trips. Now, that's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. The way to solve that probably is to make it so that the concurrency is not a commodity. But on the other side of that is Commissioner Lowther's concerns. We don't build roads like we were talking about building 43rd Avenue in the north end of the county right now. They are raised medians. They are landscaped. And so, looking out for your constituents in that part of the county, I certainly do understand. And if you want to know what one could look like, look at 512 right through Sebastian right now versus what the Phase 3 and Phase 4 is fixing to look like. But still, we have the issue of trying to move people around. And really, in front of Ms. Cuff's house, it sounds like that it's not going to be, or it's not scheduled to be, a 5-lane. But it's still, I need staff to come back with something. And if the only way that we can allow concurrency to be met is on 27th and Oslo Road is to widen that portion, then we may need to look at that, Commissioner.
That's what staff is saying. Staff, based on the information we have, the models, and looking at our comp plan and long-term growth, we feel we will have to widen 27th and 43rd Avenue. And I do believe that eventually, and this is not popular to say, but I think you need to disclose this, we'll be widening 43rd all the way to the county line to 5 lanes eventually in time. I mean, it's not the popular thing, but it's what everything shows. The professional data that we have as a staff shows that we should be widening this. We brought this to the commission several years ago, and it is a very hard decision. There's a lot of citizens that are upset about how it's going to impact them individually, but we have to look at it as a whole community, and it just shows that we need to widen it to 5.
Well, we have 2 options.
Mr. Copeland, you have anything else?
No, I wanted to consider Mr. Lowther's suggestion that we 3-lane it the whole way down.
But it's there.
Okay, that's what it is.
We're going to do that. Yeah. But I still, Jim, that really doesn't hit the issue. I think the biggest thing is if Jim is saying that we're looking at 2 or 3 feet of more right-of-way to be able to, and I'm talking about a median that's not 4 foot wide. I don't think the people down there want 5 lanes of asphalt or 4 lanes and a turn lane. And I think we in Indian River County have always set ourselves aside to be different. And I think we need to design something that's different. Maybe if the state doesn't warrant that, so be it. Let's design something that maybe we can live with capacity, the residents can live with a project that looks good, that's landscaped, and not just the superhighway.
Right, like Mr. Davis said, we don't want another 512 going through 43rd Avenue.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't either.
Okay. Unfortunately, we haven't designed an aesthetically pleasing road yet, and we don't have anything to point to. But that's what we plan to do: is try and make our roads.
Great place to start.
The flavor of this community is residential, and wants to stay residential. and we need to set our sights on beautification, which we lack in the county, that, you know, we all want to raise our standards there, and not over paving. I think it's pretty
Mr.
simple.
Copeland. It looks as if this motion is going nowhere. There is not a motion, so you still want to speak, Adrian?
Why she's coming up, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead. Honeymoon's over, huh?
From the beginning of the 43rd Avenue saga, it had never affected our house directly. It never had. And people had said, then why did I come up to fight it? Because I am for the greater good. And when I sat down many moons ago with Bob Keating, we looked at the land use plan, I kind of chuckled. I said, everybody makes mistakes, and obviously one was made. Because if this was really planned properly, and I know this is to my detriment about what I'm going to say, but I've said it before, is that why, in the infinite wisdom of planning, and you thought about expansion from south going north, why did you never take into account the area from Oslo or the county line to 8th? It was never planned, as you've said before, to be expanded. It's always been 2 lanes. It wasn't in the plan for 210 or for, it's not in the comp plan. It wasn't. It needs to be changed. It does need to be expanded. And I said, how are you going to accommodate the traffic that you say is going to be coming from the south if that was never planned to begin with? So, with saying that, and with understanding that traffic is coming, my biggest concern is the roads should have been improved all along. The road now, in my feeling, should have been 3-lane, and we know exactly where it stands, with the possibility of where do we go from here, but that's not the case. We have 94 driveways from Oslo Road to Route 60. And if you make it two different one-way streets, all those people coming home from work, from whichever direction they come from, are going to have to stop traffic, turn around, make a U-turn, or whatever they're going to have to do to get into their driveways. I drive that road every day. Every single day, 10, 15 times do I come back to my house because I come back for supplies. So I'm on that road a lot and at different times of the day. The biggest problem on the road is people turning in to their driveways. If I was in a turn lane, I wouldn't hold anyone up. I'll wait. I'll be happy to wait while the traffic goes by. But that's not the issue either. Widening alone is not going to solve the problem. And I will only give you one example. 58th and Route 60. Everybody knows that is one of the worst intersections. It's planned on being widened. And I was told when it's finished, it can't go any wider. Is this last widening, is that correct? That there isn't any more space, Joe, to widen it once they're going to finish the expansion?
You know, you could always widen it if you take entire buildings. I mean, but that's what we're looking at, those options here.
Okay. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be trying to get out of Sam's or Walmart, that right across from Home Depot and cut across 58th, to see that a car pulls out and it blocks traffic. Now, what I don't understand is that when Home Depot wanted to buy in Ruby Tuesdays and Walmart and Sam's and all these businesses, and not that I'm against any of the businesses, why didn't the planners say this is going to cause, no matter how wide the road is, a traffic jam? You cannot have egress out at that point. It has to be planned differently or you can't build, because no matter how wide you make it, it's not going to stop that traffic that comes out of Home Depot and Sam's and Walmart every day, constantly. It's just going to make the road wider and more people to get out. Something else has to change when these buildings are built, because those exits don't work. So widening alone is not the answer. And our residential streets, no matter where they are, need to be preserved. So blatantly 5-laning, I just cannot see it. And I'm for the better good, whatever it might be. And several years ago when I sat across from Bob Keating, I said, Tell me what is the plan for the future, and what happens if, as it said in the paper a couple days ago, that the homes in Vero Beach are 54% overpriced, that if, not the bottom going out of the market, but there is a slump, and all these thousands of acres that these outside developers own do not decide to get built out, and they own the concurrency, and they decide to sell them, and now we've destroyed neighborhoods on traffic that isn't there. And one last thing, why aren't we worried about our roads in the county instead of the big concern about what's happening from St. Lucie or another county when they don't seem to have any concern about us whatsoever?
I agree with that. I mean, that's a good statement, but it doesn't solve the problem.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Ann Burleson. I live on Forest Lakes on the corner of 2nd Square and 43rd. And I agree with what Adrian said, that there is a problem on 43rd. But I think one reason that everybody is so scared on 43rd is because nobody's given us any kind of an idea other than they're going to shove 5 lanes of asphalt between our homes. My back fence, right on the other side of my back fence, starts the county property. So in essence, somebody's telling me that right up to my back fence and then 25 feet from my door, somebody's going to be zooming by. We have fought and fought and fought and fought in that area to try and get the truck traffic off of 43rd. Bless his heart, Mr. McGarvey finally got that done for us. Finally put up load limit signs where the sheriff's department had something, instead of just stopping trucks. Anybody over 9 tons can't go there. But nobody does anything about it. I sit out in the morning and have my coffee at 5 in the morning on my patio and watch the water in my pool ripple and the patio below my chair vibrate because dump truck after dump truck after dump truck comes by there. Not just dump trucks, 18-wheelers carrying pipe, machinery, Coca-Cola, Budweiser. I could, give you a whole list of everybody that comes down there. Like Commissioner Bowden said, it is a residential area, and I think that's what's panicked a lot of people in that area, because nobody seems to be concerned about the residents. It's all about the developers want to build their houses beyond that. I'm not opposed to growth. Growth is good for everybody. But you have to keep in mind the people that were here first. Don't just open the doors and push us out the door because these guys want to come in and put these multi-million-dollar homes out there and bring all these other people in the community. We were here too. Take us into consideration. The Publix on Oslo and 43rd's a godsend for me. I don't have to run someplace else. So nobody's opposed to it. I'm angry because Indian River National Bank can't build there. I don't really understand it. The people that pass by there, I wouldn't think concurrency would make a whole lot of difference with them. The people that pass by there are the ones who deal with that branch of the bank, and they're going to stop there anyway. I don't think you're going to be bringing necessarily new people because of that bank. It's going to be people that bank there anyway, and they're going to pop into that location. But I think that's why everybody has gotten so angry about this situation on 27th and 43rd, because nobody seems to be considering the people who were there first. You want to just come and plow through and plop 5 lanes of asphalt in our backyard, right up close to our front door in many instances. Nobody's told us, what are you going to do about the noise? What are you going to do? I mean, the noise now is horrific, and it's only 3 lanes, but because of the dump trucks and the 18-wheelers, it's horrific. What are you going to do about, nobody has said anything to us about, are you going to give us some mounds with vegetation to give us a little more privacy? Or are you just going to come strip us bare? And because my back fence is right up to the county property line, when you come and clear that to lay your beginnings of the road, is that going to kill all what privacy I've got? The roots are going to be killed and everything's going to die out? Nobody has told us anything except we're putting 5 lanes down 43rd and 27th. And that's why you've got everybody angry at you.
We told everybody we're going to do 3 lanes down 27th and 43rd.
Well, you did, but now you're telling us, no, you've changed your mind.
That's only me. That's me. That's the way I feel.
I know.
Obviously, there hasn't been a motion here. I don't know what you're arguing about. We're going to do 3 lanes. That should make you happy.
3 lanes is no problem.
Okay, that's what we're going to do.
But then Commissioner Davis is still saying 5 lanes. It's got to be done. It's got to be
You
done.
said that. Anyway, can we move to the next speaker, please?
We need to address the concurrency issue that
We need to hush.
Okay.
We need to get through to people who want to speak.
All right. Yes, sir.
Good, Art.
Oh, I wouldn't think of that.
Donna Wilson, Glendale Lakes. And the reason we're saying this is because you keep from 3 to 5 to 3 to 5.
It's just me. Aim all your comments at me.
Right, I
These
know
people-
that, but you're here for a little bit longer, aren't you?
A little bit, whole year.
He might run again.
And-
He might
and-
run again.
And
might-
several
It's just-
of
Let
our...
me explain. My background is in engineering and road construction, things like that. And I see it differently from other people. I'm kind of like those guys there, and I see a need, and we need to fill it.
Right, I know that. But another issue, I've seen this in Pompano Beach. I lived in Pompano Beach when it was smaller than Vero Beach. Now when I go home to visit my mother, these 5-lane asphalts, it deteriorates the neighborhood. First it's the ones that front, and then it filters back because no one wants to live on that road. It becomes rentals, and then it just, so you have a crime problem. You have the neighborhoods destroyed. So it's not only your traffic. If you put 5 lanes in there, it's ugly. Then comes the crime, the deterioration. You have another problem. And as long as you're on this board.
Don't vote for me again.
And
aren't you running again?
You're not running, and believe me, the people that aren't here because of the season, the holiday, we canvassed the neighborhood. They didn't know they had to go to work. That's another factor.
That's all right. You've been heard.
But
He was here in 1911 when it was disputed, so that's why he's upset.
But and like the other speaker said, why are we worried about this other county? This other county needs to get them.
Worried about them.
We're worried.
And another thing, if a road is a lot of traffic, I find another way to go.
Yeah, we all do.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Bob Johnson.
Dear Commissioners, my name is Bob Johnson, Corwin Subdivision. I trust everybody had a Merry Christmas, and looks like we're going to have a Happy New Year. And I have some suggestions for Mr. Wesley's Davis's solutions to this concurrency. Some of them are pretty tough. We've already seen where the staff can be very innovative in trying to look for solutions to 43rd and 27th Avenue by working with the state and working with the E20 and so forth. So we know that they can be very innovative and can work together. One of the suggestions that was made earlier this morning would be to study the widening of critical intersections to speed up the traffic flow. So that's one action that could be taken. And I think that the staff was tasked last year to do this. And I think that that report may even be available now and available to speed up traffic on 43rd by intersection right turn, left turn improvements and stoplight intersections. Now, 27th Avenue Bank situation, it looks like concurrency, and this has brought all this to a head. Maybe one of the solutions could be to make this bank part of the 27th Avenue new development, include it as part of a planned development concept for the South County Initiative overall plan. So that could be rolled into this big development that dumped the $6.5 million and bought all the concurrency. Maybe that would be a solution. The Board of County Commissioners could review the 27th Avenue PD, reconsider approval of the original approval, of the PD since it was only conceptual and reduce its density. Up to now, a PD comes before you, you review it, the staff makes recommendations, but there's no reason why you can't take a PD, since you already approved it, and look at it again and reduce that density on that plan development. So that's another option that may be available to you.
Okay.
In South County, the colony development, I don't believe that's been before you yet. But that was originally planned to have a big golf course and so forth. I don't know what the new name of it is now, but I understand that there's not going to be a golf course anymore, which means that there probably increased density in that. So I think that my suggestion would be when that comes before you to give it a real big review and an analysis as to how this impacts concurrency. Review the government's responsibility to ensure a private commercial business makes a profit. What is the role of government to a commercial business to make a profit? That's what this bank is all about, it seems like to me, is that this bank wants to come in and build. It doesn't seem to me that the government has a role in seeing that business makes a profit. When the concurrency is available, maybe then he can build his bank. The bank could, here's another option here, the bank could buy the concurrency from that developer that's already paid his $6.5 million.
He'll be wanting 12.17 or something.
In other words, have the bank go to the developer and work out a situation where maybe the bank can pay some of the concurrency. I mean, we don't know how many years it takes to build that development out on 27th Avenue, but it's going to take quite a few years, and that's another option that may be available. Have these two gentlemen work together and resolve the concurrency problem. These are just a few thoughts and suggestions for your review. It would appear that South County is already at a build-out point.
Almost.
Not
quite. Quite.
Mr. Keating has supported the MPO 2030. I'm sure that the staff is taking a lot of heat from the developers, and frustration is showing. There may be other solutions that I'm not aware of on the widening 43rd Avenue, 27th Avenue. And I should note that I'd like to comment that there appears to be a difference in the databases which the MPO used for its MPO approval on the 2030 plan and the one the county uses. The MPO used a regional traffic database, and I think the county, Indian River County traffic study database may be a little more, maybe a little different. So we ought to be consistent on what databases we use for traffic studies. So what are some of the what are some recommendations? Well, the county should consider implementing a limit on the amount of concurrency that's able to be purchased in construction. I think that's the big problem.
We've got that in the now.
A lot of money was dumped in. A lot of local developers, our guys that live here, we buy in their shops, we buy their homes and things, got squeezed out by this $6.5 million concurrency deal.
Yes, we did.
And maybe an option would be to send back a check for $1 million to open up some of the concurrency that he gave.
I've asked that question. I've been informed by legal that we can't do that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else over here? Ms. George.
Who got the Porsche?
Thank you, Mr. Newberger. I'd also like to thank Mr. Swanson. I think we're singing from the same song sheet. I really appreciate your comments this morning. I just wanted to bring up something else with the 100,000 people that are expected. Our aquifers, I understand they're low. And if you bring in 100 more thousand people, you know, the old thing about water everywhere and not a drop to drink. So, I mean, there's more things to think about than just looking at asphalt. Thank you.
Good. Anyone else there? I think, yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Andy Beindorf, President of Indian River National Bank, and it's been noted in several conversations or discussion items about our prior, or my discussion up here with the commission meeting in December, and the effects that concurrency has had on Indian River National Bank expansion plans on Oslo Road and 27th Avenue. I would like to state the purpose of me speaking at that meeting was because the discussion was around residential and not the effects of concurrency on the commercial and business side affecting this area. I did not and have not called any of you since that meeting and have not lobbied any position with you. I think it's important as the commission that you take all the information that you have and you make the right decision. It's been mentioned today by some of the participants how concurrency has affected us. But let me say one thing. You know, we're not the only business that's going to be affected in this area. Currently, there is a veterinarian, a local vet, looking to expand in the same center we are on 27th Avenue. He is moving out of a 1,500 square foot facility, and he's proposing and trying to pursue it, getting a building permit, a building approximately 11,000 square foot facility. He will be hiring and employing individuals. His business is expanding. So it goes far beyond the bank. You have local services. You'll have local companies who will need to provide the services who will be shut out in this corridor. But the other part I think is important is that there will be other roads and other auxiliary roads that the same issue will eventually impact. One thing I would like to say is in the process of buying this location, as I indicated at the last meeting, we had put quite a bit of time and thought for years of expanding our franchise in the South County. We used a local realtor, we used local professionals, all who gave us the professional services. We met with staff, and I can tell you they represented the county in a very professional manner. This was an issue that really nobody anticipated. Certainly we wouldn't have anticipated it, and I don't think staff, anybody on that side would anticipate it, but it did occur. As I noted last time, we're not sure at this point what is from a microeconomic level, what impact does this have? But it will have an impact. Again, I think what happens, the rules of the game need to be laid out. What other areas will be impacted? Not totally sure. But I think a plan needs to be laid out, not only for the business community, for those who want to expand their services, but I think for everybody. We do have a traffic problem, and I think it was noted by Mr. Davis that South Florida has grown to capacity and will continue to have it. But I think this is something from a commission standpoint. You're put into position to plan, to provide the leadership. It's important that you take this into consideration and see what the solution there is. As Mr. Swanson had indicated, if it's such need to label as a moratorium, maybe it's what needs to happen. But for companies moving to expand, they need to know the rules and everything that's in front of them, because a lot of time, a lot of capital, a lot of effort goes into it. And we're here to support. One thing about Indian River National, we are a good corporate citizen. We'll continue to be as such. We want to provide the services. We want to play our part. So I hope on the commission side you will take a look at it and come up with the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. Beindorf. Did I see another hand over here? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Margaret Derwin. I live at 585 43rd Avenue, and I'm sure glad I don't have your job. I have tried to listen to everyone and evaluate everything, and believe it or not, I have not talked to Adrienne Cuff in 6 months. She lives down the street from me, and as she was giving her talk, I kept going, oh my gosh, I was right, I had written down the same thing. So you do have a lot of people that are thinking the same way without conversing. We're not in little groups talking about y'all all the time. And we don't want you in little groups talking about us. Now, my main concern, second time I've ever spoken to y'all, and Art told me he wasn't going to be running. He told me that 5 weeks ago, so I don't know what you're doing. But
Still not running.
that's exactly what you told me, right?
I don't know. I got till next July to
It's
decide.
your privilege. But you do confuse us. When we walk in, you're sitting there. But here's the thing. County commission business is county commission business until it starts costing the taxpayers. We choose you to watch everything very carefully. For us, we appreciate developers. We want the city and county to be beautiful, but we do not want to give up our rights or our children's rights for fast development, and you, each and every one of you, have allowed it to happen. Why would you ever let things move so fast when you're not prepared for it? You said yes, 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 all down the line. I got it all written down, but I memorized it. And I never could understand how you could sell concurrency. Can you explain that?
That's a new phenomenon.
Yeah, it is very new, because let me tell you
We put a
something.
stop to that, actually.
Well, it's a little late on some of it.
Well, we had to change the law.
That it is.
And I'm going to tell you, I personally hold every one of you responsible. Like you had said that you were worried about Mr. Davis,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you were worried about the day that somebody would come in and just not be able to build a house down on 27th or 43rd. I don't want to build another house, but I can tell you this. I've paid taxes out there for 40 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And I own concurrency, and if you've sold my concurrency, you're in
You already
deep
got
trouble.
yours.
No.
You have yours.
I have never done anything out there but raise 2 children, 2 horses, 5 dogs, and 10 cats and rabbits and everything, and never even cut a tree branch down. And you would tell me you've sold my concurrency? I don't know why these citizens aren't up in arms at you. You don't have the right to sell what belongs to me or any other taxpayer. And if you did sell it, you're going to have to ante up whenever time might come. I don't see it in the foreseeable future. But that is what brings people like me here. I don't want to be here. I chose you to represent us properly, but you get caught up, and it's becoming sort of like Mrs. Bowden used the word flavor of your commission, that you're so interested in what everybody outside is going to be doing. Tell me, where is your residential area from 20th Street west to 43rd Avenue? What is your little residential community that you have in your mind? What is that? Where is it in Vero Beach? You have a residential city community area up there. Where is your residential community area in your West County, Southwest County? What do you consider that being?
From the river edge to Yeehaw Junction.
Everything within the urban service area.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, then why are you going to have 3, 4, or 5 main lane 5 roads down the middle of it? You don't even have a residential area down there. You've got little residential subdivisions now squeezed in between state roads. That is not right, because everybody that went out there, and I was one of the first ones, checked it thoroughly. That whole area is residential. Look at your map. I carry maps around. You know, you can look at your maps and see it's all residential, the whole thing. Why are you thinking you're going to put a 5-lane road down there to accommodate Oslo? Oslo Road can just run east and west.
Oslo Road's residential, too.
Pardon?
Oslo Road is residential.
Well, you got a lot of stuff going on out there that
Road 60 is residential.
you're putting a lot of stuff in the wrong place then, and you're putting a burden on homeowners. I don't like it. It's not fair. Your home is your castle.
Margaret, let me defend that. I've been here a little bit longer than you have, and we all knew that 27th Avenue, 43rd Avenue, 58th, they were all thoroughfares. We always knew that.
I didn't always know
From the
that because I went down and talked to him. I was the first person ever built out there on 43rd Avenue. There was nothing
There a long
out there.
time.
And nobody knew that.
Well,
we checked. It was residential. We didn't have, you know, the other thing, there's this little mist about, oh, well, y'all knew, and oh, well, that was your choice, and oh, well, oh, well. Yes, it was our choice. And not everybody. I love the very island. I had business over there for 30 years. Loved it. My living on 40, I'm going to use me for a change. My business living on 43rd Avenue was a definite decision. We owned a lot at the moorings. We owned a lot at Rio Mare Bay. We owned a home, a big home on Flamevine Lane. So we didn't have to move there. We didn't have to stay there. We were there because, believe it or not, the privacy. A friend of mine has been here. She said, your backyard, it's not pretty, but it's woods. It looks like a park. I mean, it's a matter of enjoying the environment you're in, of where you want to live when you come home to rest at night. And you're not going to put 5 lanes in front of my house without a fight, and I think that it's just sorry that you would do it, because the last time I was up here, I stood right here with the same piece of paper, told you that my greatest concern were the school children. You have never mentioned them. Your greatest, your largest concentration of schools is between 20th Avenue and 43rd Avenue. And that's where your 3 main arteries you have down to go 5 lanes. Are you really thinking straight? Right now you have 15,425 students in that circle where I'm naming, going to school every morning, and 15,425 students coming home every afternoon. Told y'all that same piece of paper. I was here
That would almost
2
put-
years ago.
That would almost put no children in the North County.
I don't care what you think. Now, you want to know how many are in each school, I can call it off to you if you'd like to know. It's right here. I got it from the school.
We only have about 16,000 in the public school system.
Well, right here, I think you better read this
I
little
will.
sheet of
I will.
paper, because the total from this sheet of paper is 15,425.
District-wide?
Okay, look, let's not argue schools.
Okay.
Can we wrap it up, Margaret, so we can...
Well, I'm just saying to you, no, we're not. We're going to make sure these students are protected, and you're putting them on state roads, 5-lane roads. They have to cross those roads to get to school, to go to every place they go. And there's 30,000 students on the roads every day, driving cars, wobbling on bicycles. A woman stands there, has to run across the street and hold their hand to get across. The first student that is killed because of your actions, I personally want to hold you totally responsible, because you know 5 lanes should not be on any one of those roads. Carry it over to 58, that's what you built it for. Not to mention 43rd Avenue dead ends. Right up at 41st Street, you can't even get to Gifford. So what's the 5 lane about? You can make changes. You can do it according to the public. And me speaking is nothing. You got hundreds and hundreds of people out there watching you. And it's getting to be sort of a worrisome thing, because you're not watching your people and your children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Anyone else want to speak on this dead issue?
Someone forgot your glasses.
You should have told me you weren't interested. I wouldn't have put it on the agenda. What's happening?
Good morning. My name is Ron Baer. I'll give my work address. It's 4055 41st Avenue. I work for the Sheriff's Office. I am not here representing the Sheriff's Office. I'm here just as a concerned citizen. Yes, there's a lot of problems. The traffic does need to flow. We need to help everyone get where they're going safely. I see a lot of problems. I've heard a lot of suggestions. I haven't seen any solutions. We heard about making it a 3-lane road. No one's seen any. We had projections up here of 5 lanes. It hasn't happened. I haven't seen anything on 3-laning it. You've got roads running east and west going out to 58th Avenue. None of them have a bike lane on them. None of them have turning lanes with light arrows to suggest that the person can get on and off of 43rd safely. Try 8th Street, try 12th, try 4th. You got a turning lane, you have no turning arrow. It's one of your main traffic problems at 26th Street and 43rd Avenue. You got to head east on 26th Street, you get to 43rd Avenue, go north. You're going to sit there, if it's between 3 and 5 o'clock at night, you're going to sit there for 3-4 light cycles before you can get through. The only way you're going to get through is pull into the middle of the intersection, which is in violation of Florida law. You can't move into that intersection and make a left-hand turn without putting your life at risk. You got to start looking at connecting the traffic lights to move the traffic flow. We talk about 5-laning and boulevarding. It doesn't fit. Take a tape measure and let's all go out and meet and measure it. It doesn't fit. Unless you're suggesting to buy all the homes up and down that road, it's not going to fit. It's not going to happen. Measure it. You want to talk about the impact. Go back and look at the emails and the letters sent to the people from Tropic Villas, south corner of 6th Avenue and 12th Street that extends down to the boulevard. Your traffic engineers have received complaints about the noise. It's a 5-lane road on 12th Street. You can't enforce the law if you build a raceway. You're not going to keep those cars going. We don't have the manpower to go out there and enforce every law of speed in every street in this county. You don't have the manpower. You cannot do it by simply enforcement. It has to be through engineering. You're getting complaints on 12th Street because of the speed and the noise. The suggestion and solution by staff was to tell the people to go ahead and have the insurance companies put their fence back up, and the insurance company should pay for it. I'm telling you, those speeds are not safe down there. We went down to enforce the laws. Okay, the speed limits they're not linked properly to even enforce the laws. We need to start looking at some serious solutions. There's a lot of bright people in this community. There's a lot of bright people right up here. We elected you there because you're bright people. You got answers. Let's start looking at some solutions to get rid of this problem. 5-lane down that road, it won't fit. I personally went out there and took a tape measure and measured it. It's not going to fit. These people that have 25 feet between their driveway and the street, back your car out and stop trying to get out of your driveway. You put a boulevard in there, how are you even going to get into that? You're going to have to stop in the middle of the road and back in? Who's going to go out there and wave the people out into a 5-lane road? You talk about making a safe roadway. I can't juggle. Can't do it. Not coordinated enough. Take 2 balls. Start juggling 2 balls. Most people can do that. You talk about putting a 5-lane road there. Let's just call it, for all intents and purposes, let's call it a 4-lane road because the center turning lane is simply that. Traffic's not supposed to be flowing in it. Now let's throw 4 balls in there. Now let's increase the speed. Can you do it? Can you juggle it? That's what operating a motor vehicle is. You put that many lanes, you start moving it fast, you've got danger. Commissioner Wheeler's absolutely correct. You increase speed, you increase the risk of more serious bodily injury. You increase the liability as far as the insurance companies. There's cases that I've worked out there, cars have, as it is now, 2-lane road. Cars have traveled over 100 feet off that road in crash situations. Now you're going to put the road 25 feet from somebody's house? You're going to have cars into people's front yards and through their living rooms. They build a bank down there, you can just turn their drive-through into one of the lanes. If you keep expanding it, you keep expanding it. Where's enough is enough. It's a residential community. If we go out on the beach where you talk about gridlock, drive A1A in the afternoon. What are you going to do? Pave the beach? We can't put pavement down everywhere. There are problems, there's no doubt. None of these people want gridlock either. They live out there. They travel that road more than anybody. I just don't think there's some solutions out there, but I don't think we're really expanding and looking at it. We don't have interconnectability with our traffic light cycle. We don't have turning lanes with the lights are there. There's 2 lights. All we got to do is put a light in there with an arrow so that we can make the traffic flow. It's there. I drive the road. I see it. We don't have a traffic problem in this county. You think we got a traffic problem, drive south. You'll find out that's a traffic problem. What we have here is people who don't plan their trips and are impatient. You look at 43rd Avenue. The reason that we have a lot of the problems we do, the reason that traffic gets stopped is because the person wants to make a left-hand turn. They have nowhere to go. They have to set in the travel lane. That's what backs up the traffic. That creates gridlock. You put a center turn lane in there, that car will transition into the turn lane, make a left-hand turn. The traffic continues to flow. Now, I don't know, I'm not a builder, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I have a little bit of wisdom just based on what I've observed over the years. And I just don't see this as being a major hurdle, that road can't be 3-laned with one of the lanes being a center turning lane. My understanding is that 43rd Avenue, as it comes across the county line or somewhere in St. Lucie, is going to link to 58th. I think that's going to eliminate a lot of your problems. If you don't think that a lot of your traffic running 43rd Avenue is going to the Indian River Mall, Indian River Commons, if you don't think that's the case, sit and watch the number count. I'd like to have a number count done on the turning lane compared to the straight through 43rd. When I get to that light, the backup is the left turn lane. If the people are trying to go west on off of 43rd onto 58 to State Road 60, why aren't we transitioning somewhere farther south to get where they're going easier? There's a 1-mile link between 43rd and 58th. What is the difference if they do it on a 5-lane proposed Oslo Road or if they do it on State Road 60? If you think your trip out a little bit and you go out and you connect on the 58th Avenue, you're going to get exactly where you're going to go without the headache of setting through 3 light cycles at 43rd.
Mr. Bear, I wonder if you could wrap it up. You're rambling.
That's all I have. Again, I'm just simply here to talk about some of the real problems and some solutions.
Thank you. And you see it on a daily basis.
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I wonder if we could wrap this up. Is everyone? Mr. Paladin.
I couldn't let
We're
you
not going to
your
4
first
lanes.
day.
We're going to stay in 3 lanes. Okay.
Joseph Paladin, President of Atlantic Coast Construction Development and Chairman of the Growth Awareness Committee. A couple of things, and I'll keep it quick, Art. And congratulations on being chairman.
Chairman Newberger, please.
Chairman Newberger, I'm sorry. I lost my head. I'll try and correct that.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, sir. Anyhow, one of the problems we have, a lot of the comments that came up in the past hour or so is, how do we get to this situation so quick, et cetera, et cetera. What you got to understand is on this concurrency issue is by letting this vesting that's taken place over the past year and giving that commodity, the land, that we see as a big problem, it'd be like if you went to sleep last night and you woke up in the morning and somebody built 3,000 houses overnight on your street. You'd certainly see the difference on the roads. You certainly see the difference on the way you had to drive. Well, when they vest their concurrency ahead of time like that, on the model that dictates how our traffic engineer and how our various people indicate if we're meeting concurrency, those 3 houses really exist. Those 3,000 houses are all there. So that's really the main reason we got to this point so quickly. And the reason for the ordinance that we talked about last month, which would be coming back. Did this thing go off or something? No? Okay. Yeah. The reason for this ordinance that we brought up, last month, or in October actually, we went ahead and brought that forward in order to keep that vesting from happening. So, it's not the answer to everything. We never indicated that. But by keeping those trips available to us while we're trying to get the answers together and trying to get the roads built and trying to get our program together, by keeping that concurrency available, gives everybody more opportunity to continue moving the economy along, moving the businesses along, and keeping the people in business that have been working with you in order to come up with these answers. So we're not saying this is a permanent answer, but we're saying this will help you help us stay in business so we can keep working together to bring the answers forth. I mean, that's one of the main issues. And Mr. Johnson indicated, why not give money back, because we don't need the money in the bank account. We need the concurrency right now worse than we need the money. And there's a legal issue on that. Well, we're working on some avenues that maybe you just can't, at your choice, decide to give money back to different people that you're sorry you let vest concurrency. But by coming up with sort of an anniversary date thing, maybe guaranteeing them concurrency when they vest and, letting it be spread out over a period of years so you don't have to throw all of them trips on the model on one day. Maybe something like that. We're trying to work on something that we can bring forth to you, similar to maybe something that we brought forth last year when we brought that Tom Pelham leather forward last year to reserve concurrency. So to give the county an idea where to go with the program, give the county an idea where the roads are going that come up. So, something like that maybe we might be able to do to try and get some of that concurrency back. But we seriously need the concurrency back that we've sold out there too far in advance. And see, now the problems we have on 43rd Avenue and 27th Avenue are twofold. Number one, they're in control of their own destiny there. That's an asset. So if they really want to fix it, if they really want to do something or don't do something, they control what happens. They control that destiny. But you take out on Highway 1, we don't control our own destiny there. We're talking about the landowners and builders and developers and business people out in that area. We don't control our own destiny there. There's no fix for some of these things that are wrong because, we're not in the, in the 5-year plan or 10-year plan or, we can't correct that. So those are problems that we have to look at too, in the future. And right now, today we have problems there. We have links on Highway 1 that are negative right now. And we don't have a fix for that. Now, that's bad. Now, those links wouldn't be negative if all the vesting that went on out there way ahead of time didn't take place. Now, I think that everybody that buys land should be guaranteed the right to build on that land based on our comp plan. And I know there's kind of a division there on where, should we vest or shouldn't we vest. I think that we set up a program where we have confidence in the county doing our road plans like they've worked so hard in the past year to put together. I think that a joint venture on the county and the builders and developers and everybody involved in this county will work. And I think we've got a lot more confidence in the county being able to go forward now than we did a few years ago because we've been trying so hard to, expedite this thing. So I think we have answers. We just got to keep working together. But I just wanted to, bring those points forward.
Well, what do you do when the staff recommends widening some certain roads and the commission said, no, we're not going to do that?
Well, I think here's what you do, Art, and this is in my opinion. What you do is you look at each individual situation as an individual problem and solve it that way. You take, for instance, where we made a lot of mistakes here in the past, we confused some people not wanting to widen the roads to stop construction, some people not want to widen the roads because they want to preserve their way of life on that particular road. You got two different individuals doing the same thing for two different reasons. It's like in the Bible, it says you don't do the right thing for the wrong reason. So you're going to address those two things individually. I'm going to address Mr. Wheeler's thought process of not building the roads to slow down construction or to slow down development differently than I am, say, Miss George, who's worried about she was born in a house that her mother died in and she wants to die in the same house. You can't address those two issues the same. You can't just blanket that. And I think you really seriously can, Art. You don't have to, make a face at it. I mean, if you talk to people individually and take an individual design for that particular problem, then you have a little more of an open heart as to how you're going to solve that problem, rather than trying to do it to just stop construction or, start a moratorium of some kind. I just think we have to have a little more individual process on solving those problems, and like doing the boulevard effect, like putting the buffers up like somebody suggested, like putting a berm up with plants and stuff. I think that'll all help. But, just not building the roads isn't going to stop construction. I think Gary's starting to come around to that way of thinking.
And I'm going to have to respond to that.
Go ahead.
It's not just to stop construction. And that's not my intent at all, is to stop construction. My intent is to maintain the character of the community that I've lived in for 35 years. And it's not to stop construction. It's to say we've got enough roads here to allow so much construction, and that's what we're going to allow. We're not going to continue to 3-lane, 4-lane, 5-lane, and 8-lane to continue to grow and grow and grow There's plenty of room out here for growth right now. We can still put 300,000
And I agree with
people
what you
in here.
said. It was just two different scenarios, and a lot of times when you comment on things, you comment on, well, I don't care if it gets built or not. You're just very open about it, so I didn't think you'd be offended by me using you as an example. But somebody
No, I
has a
wasn't
personal,
offended. I just
somebody
wanted to
has
make
a
the record
personal issue with their own personal house on that particular road. You might have to address those two issues a little bit differently, is what I was trying to say. And I agree with you. And the other thing is, if we're all working in that same direction and we're not on the defense on worrying about, well, maybe you're trying to stop construction, or maybe the other guy's worried about, well, maybe you're trying to run 6 lanes of traffic through my highway, maybe we can open-mindedly come up with some better ideas. And it's just like improvements, for instance. If we have a negative link and we do improvements on 58th, and you say, well, why doesn't that take pressure off that highway on 43rd?
No.
You're going to be rerouting cars, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. Well, maybe in realness it does. But then, Chris is limited as the way he does things. He won't take those links positive, even if you're taking traffic off of that area until that project's completed or that project's built. Is that right, Chris?
Uh-oh. Debate.
Well, partially, yeah. You have to let the system react to changes like that. The traffic models, they predict that traffic's going to ebb and flow in a certain way, and we can show that by the models that traffic will go in a certain pattern, but we don't automatically make adjustments in a developer's favor simply because he thinks that if you move traffic this way, then it'll relieve this link over here. No, we have to let the system react to it. We have to let our counts actually show that change is taking place before we'll...
I understand that. We're not talking about the state. We're not talking about making decisions in the developer's favor. We're talking about making decisions that would favor the community. Because if making improvements to other roads would alleviate some of the problems on some of the links we have problems on, or some of the roads we have problems on, the sooner that we recognize that, the less pressure it would be to put 5 lanes in instead of 3 or 4 lanes.
Okay.
If we would take that traffic
We're getting
off.
into a little bit of a debate here that belongs in a workshop or something. All we're here is discusses my item to reconsider the 4-laning, which I think we've already done.
Thank you for the opportunity to take up your time.
But in closing, I'd like to... No one else going to speak? I just brought this up because at the MPO meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of discussion on traffic and concurrency and things like that. And I thought perhaps that there might be some new ideas out here. However, there isn't. And I can relate it only to one thing. Suppose we had never built I-95. How would you like to drive to New York and back on US 1 these days? So anyway, we're not building the roads to provide for more traffic. We're building the roads, as someone said, we're always trying to catch up behind the curve, reactive instead of proactive. We're trying to catch up to where the traffic is currently now. We're trying to make those roads better than what they are. My view, okay? Now, one more speaker, because we have to take a break anyway.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'll be real quick. I thought we had at least one potential compromise Mr. Lowther brought up was 4-lane with a
small
raised
median.
curb, landscape it, make it look like Beachland Boulevard. Sorry, Steve Smith, Seminole Shores, Muir Beach. Thank you. I think that's an outstanding idea. The beach is not the only place that deserves a good boulevard-looking street. Beachland Boulevard could be the model. If you showed the people along 43rd Avenue, here's what your backyard is now going to look like instead of 2 lanes of broken up pavement with dump trucks running up and down. I think I'm hearing at least some voices of approval from the 43rd Avenue group that they could probably support something like that, but all they've ever seen is 5 lanes of asphalt. The road's going to have to be built, whether it's now or in 3 or 4 years when the state comes and forces us to do it, or we're going to do it by losing $20 million in lawsuits, because you do have a lot of landowners down there that have millions of dollars invested that aren't just going to go away.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it's got politicized again, but I'd like to at least see Mr. Lowther's idea investigated by the staff. Seems
Before we do something out
do
there,
it.
they'll come up with a plan. Okay, well, I think we've come to the end of our agenda. One more?
Art, would you pass this around?
Yes.
Copies, because one of your commissioners
Only one of the commissioners needs that copy. Yes. Okay, look, we have to get through the agenda, otherwise I have to we have to adjourn.